showed that, and Yuri Perez was in the middle of doing it. Like we're seeing these young guys, and maybe we saved this for the podcast, but we're seeing these young guys who can like actually be studs, which is kind of it used to be like with young pitchers, and it still mostly is. Like it's like tight ends with football. You don't want to go early with them because they usually take forever. But with the studs can be studs, like Brock Bowers, football.
I mean, I agree with that, but I also think like we see that all the time with pitchers, like these young guys that come in and are studs. Like it's so much less predictable. Like how it's going to translate from the minors to the pros is just.
I think we're about to get into gold right here. I don't know if we want to waste this stuff, but I do
We're
like
already
this
recording.
conversation.
This is really? This is going to be a very different episode than our traditional Dynasty Dingers podcast. Welcome, everybody. Doc gave you a great little minute and a half there on his, what would you call that? Toolshed draft mock? What is the exact title? Like, is there a publication running?
It's called the annual Toolshed mock podcast. And, you know, we only had Chris Clegg and Eric Cross on here because we just really wanted favors in the future. We don't do things just to be nice. It's all for, you know, you owe me something, buddy. So I started emailing them and like whatever kind of threats. And now all of a sudden we're in the industry mock. So by any means necessary. That's not the Scout the Statline motto. Everything I just said is just Doc's motto. That's just Doc Holiday Dyna. I think everyone here believes the opposite of what I just said. Well, it is a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
We'll welcome you, Ross, and you and Brian, but let's just keep it casual today. We're just going to hang out. This doesn't have to be an episode that our listeners necessarily truly enjoy the full extent of, because I think we'll probably run a little bit longer tonight. But the last time I think the four of us were on was this time last year. Is that right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Yeah, it's something like that. I got a gigantic hat now. It's actually covering up these earmuffs. It's like negative something here. But we had the dryer going. I got a space heater out here. By any means necessary, I'm not addicted to cigars. But yeah, it's been a while, folks. Bats and Stats. If y'all aren't familiar with the OG podcast for Scout the Statline, it was called Bats and Stats. Check it out on the YouTubes. Ross and B Shanks here were actually the hosts. And then, much like I was I'm very aggressive, and so I came in aggressively. I kicked them out. Hostile takeover. Now Matt and Doc brought the Dynasty Dingers to the table. Now they're the guests, but we're so happy to have them.
I was gonna say, I think that podcast where we all got together was probably the genesis of Dynasty Dingers.
Yeah,
really.
I don't like the term "was Bats and Stats." It still is Bats and Stats. Just a little bit of a hang up. We're coming back, baby.
It's a challenge.
You know what I noticed? Yeah, we'll have two podcasts. They're going to compete with each other. Who's going to be the best? I noticed, though, looking through our YouTube channel, that the logo for our channel is still the Bats and Stats logo. We probably need to broaden that up a little bit.
I guess we're going to have to get Sean on the horn. Sean's going to have to create another logo for these guys. So when this all started, when the whole Bats and Stats thing started, like our intro music, our logo, these were all friends of ours that created all this stuff. Our friend Josh is the one that actually plays that song. And then Sean is the one that built the logo. So, man, I guess we're going to have to call in another favor.
Yeah,
it's funny. We were just talking about that.
Really bootstrapping it.
We don't even have intro music yet, and there'll be times when I'm editing it where it's like 5 minutes or 5 seconds of just the logo that I created on Canva, and I'm thinking to myself, I was like, I wonder what people in their car when they play the podcast think of this, because it can be anywhere from 2 seconds to 5 seconds. We're still in the process, but Doc, I do have good news. We have finally broken 200 listeners for one of our episodes on just audio platforms. So the FYPD with you, Ross, was very successful. So that's good.
Yeah, I noticed it got a lot of pretty good traction on YouTube. That's awesome.
All right, so if we're gonna keep it casual today, I have an idea. I just wanted just to kind of talk about
before you get on that idea. I'm gonna cut it off. I want to do, because it sounds good, and I want to make sure we do the Bats and Stats tradition first. What's everyone drinking? We have the alcoholics here tonight. So
easy.
Usually I'm the weird guy. Like, we've been bringing on more and more, like, like industry professional types who are, they got the studio and everything. And then I'm over here and just looking like a goof, slamming back booze. And I remember eggnog. I had Chris Clegg on here. I was chugging Evan Williams eggnog. And I was like, gosh, I need B Shanks and Ross here to back me up.
Okay, so I'll start us off. So I think last time when you were introducing me, you said, bats and stats was like alcoholism with stats. So we're back, and I did bring some beer. This is I took a page right out of Brian's book for this one, and I'm going Coors Light tonight.
Nice.
Light and easy.
Shout out Coors Light. Sponsor us whenever you're ready. We're ready to rock and roll. I got a new one. I bought this the other night. It's called Lone River Ranch Water. Terrible name, right? Like, why would you drink ranch water? That there's going to be a lot of things in ranch water that you don't want in your mouth. Terrible name. Great seltzer. This one is spicy. It's a hard seltzer with the taste of agave, nectar, lime, and jalapeno. And I don't like jalapeno in my beers, but with the seltzer, it's really good. It does have a little story on here. It says a lone river cuts through the high desert of far west Texas. Out of the Lone River flows ranch water. Legend has it the first soul to taste ranch water followed miles of Texas stars until found asleep under a pinyon tree. While what transpired on that journey remains a mystery, its spirits inspires to this day. Tonight we go on a journey.
I feel inspired.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's very inspiring.
Matt, do you have anything?
Oh yeah, in me in true fashion, I've got my good old Dr. Pepper. We'll pretend there's alcohol in it. I think last year when I came on with you to your show, Ross and B Shanks, I actually had a vitamin water. So maybe next year I might actually pull out a bottle of liquor. We'll see.
There was a sippy cup at one point, Matt. I apologize. I thought it was you. Somebody had like a juice box and like an old school juice box, and I thought it was Matt.
You give my little one a couple more months, I will probably have lots of juice boxes, and I will feel no shame drinking a juice box on air, but not yet. I may have had a shaker.
Before you guys get into that, hey, can we do a round of applause? Like Doc's getting close, right?
Yeah.
Doc, we're getting close.
Yes, everyone. I may this is crazy. This might be the craziest podcast we ever do. My wife is like having serious contractions right now, and I know I'm not going to be available for a while. She doesn't need me. She doesn't need me at all. For recording time for the record is 9:12 p.m. Eastern. She needs to sleep. She needs to rest. Okay, I'm just annoying, and we'd be talking about all my drafts I'm doing right now. So this is a benefit to her for me being out here. So with that in mind, we have a smorgasbord something of drinks. We have classic. Look at this Coca-Cola Classic in the bottle. Tastes better that way. That's to get the sugar going. I'm probably not going to sleep tonight. Now that in mind, I don't want to drink too much. I may have to drive her to the hospital. So while this is 116 proof, 58%, it's zombie fuel. It's actually infused with coffee. This is from a local guy, William Rose Distillery in Indiana. And it actually tastes a lot like coffee. I'm only going to do the one drink. And it actually says it's a Tombstone souvenir from Tombstone, Arizona. And I actually have to go to a film festival where I'm playing Doc Holliday in 48 hours. So hopefully the baby comes out first. And then finally, because this might go a little long and I'm only doing the one drink, I have a little bit of red wine, Mouverdre from, again, the same guy in Indiana. So it seems like I'm drinking a lot, but one of those was a soda. And I'll probably just sip on the wine. Anyway, folks, I may leave at any point in this podcast. The rest of these guys will carry us forward. Stay tuned.
That would be incredible.
Another thing I want to just point out real quick. I'm digging the mustache, Doc.
It's
starting to look
back.
sharp, buddy. Starting to look sharp. Matt,
yeah, I cut my hair short.
You can trim up, bud. You can trim up.
It's bad. I've given up with one arm.
On.
With one arm, I've just given up on the majority of my responsibilities in life, and I just continue to make excuses. So I cannot wait to shave with both hands. It's going to be fantastic.
Hey, Brian, the sippy cup was Drew Wheeler, I think.
You're correct. It was Drew. Yeah. That was a great episode.
I want to drink this. Cheers. I'm not going to pound it. I'm sipping it.
Congratulations again, Doc. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful year for you, my friend.
Second child coming. Let's do it.
Yeah, Doc's getting a little crazy. He's doing the 2 startup STS drafts that we're going to talk about today. He's having the baby. You may have to go to Arizona if time permits. You were attempting to visit Washington, D.C. this week.
I might be moving to Washington, D.C.
And then you might be moving. Yeah.
Next week. So it's crazy.
That's another story.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
So, yeah, I think you're in good spirits with the wine and the coffee, liqueur, whiskey that you have. I think, partake if you can.
Just a little bit. No, I got it. Might probably have to drive at like 3 a.m. tonight. Maybe during this podcast, we'll find out.
So, gentlemen, we are representing Scout the Statline today, of course. And Doc, you did a great job getting all of us together and 60-ish subscribers to do 2 leagues. We are almost at the end of the major league portion of both drafts. We've finished one. We are on the tail end of another. Us 4 are in one league, and then Doc, you and I and Ross are in the secondary points league. But today's episode is just going to be kind of breaking down our decision-making, some of the other rosters, what we've thought of these drafts. But again, I kind of wanted to just be open forum for us to have a conversation. Before I turn it over to you guys, the idea I had, because as I was going through notes, 30 teams, right? If we just stick with just the categories league that we're all in, if we just go through team to team and kind of talk about what we see, what they did, maybe a hole here or there, what we liked, it was kind of my idea, as opposed to kind of just being all over the board. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'll kick it off here. There was a conversation. We're all on Discord together with all these other 30 owners. And it's been getting a little bit testy because it is taking a little bit longer than a lot of us like. There's some people that are done within 5 minutes of their clock timer. There's some people that are done within close to 2 hours of their clock. So it's getting a little bit testy. I finally jumped into the Discord today and I said, I kind of like the feistiness. I kind of like what's going on in here. Just hurry up, make your goddamn draft pick.
Just to clarify, so this was a pretty peaceful draft, and both leagues were pretty peaceful. But when the last few picks of the category league, Jose Trevino, I know who he is. Dari Morita, don't know. Eduard Bazardo, great name, but don't know him. Yarborough, Sandlin, I know those guys, but there's one more round to go, and we're not even done that one. Like, this is, folks, if you've never been in a 30-man, it's getting greasy, and we have guys who have been in those before, and we have guys who have not, and so the stress levels are starting to build, and people are starting to hate. They're learning to hate because we're doing like a prospect round. The prospect rounds are separate. They start in round 27, so we're so close to this fun, right?
That's exactly
people want to murder each other to get there.
So I was explaining this to a gentleman that I was sitting at the basketball game with, and he wanted in on the league. And I said, well, you got to join Scout the Statline to get in on something like this. But we were going through the draft, and I like to think that I know a little bit about baseball and its players and stuff like that. Dude, I'm telling you, I am scraping the bottom of my knowledge barrel. Like I took Emmanuel Rivera for the Baltimore Orioles first base and third base eligibility. I'm not going to lie to you. I had no idea who he was.
And Ross, I think that goes into your home league that I'm in with you and B Shanks, which we are reorganizing the league right now, right? You guys are doing episodes on YouTube and presenting each member of the league, but we had 10 teams, if I'm correct, that needed to kind of reconstruct the rosters that came in. Is that fair to say? Was it 10?
I think we have 12 people in the draft, but yeah, 2 of those were already owned teams. They wanted to go into the draft because they just thought it was a better chance for them to get back to a competitive state.
Yeah. Well, and the comment I was going to make was we are finishing up that draft portion, and there are still a plethora of players I would like to have. And that's 20, man. The difference between 20 and 30 is such a wide gap, where 20, in at least in my past experience of playing, would have been considered a very, very large league. And it's still competitive if you can play the waiver wire and draft properly. But as soon as we get into that 30, man, as you kind of talked about, Shanks, it's difficult. I had a queue today, I think that started with 30 players. I'm down to 1. And I don't want to look for anyone else in my queue. But Your draft has been fun as well, Ross. I think that really gives a great example of what you can do for a dispersal concept if you're in a league, especially for our listeners that may have some drama or may need to cut a couple players. The dispersal works really well.
Yeah, so essentially what we did there,
we
swapped out we swapped out half the league, and the way that we handled it is we took all the players from those teams and we dumped them into free agency. And then those 10 teams, plus 2 more, which decided to dump their entire roster into the pool, drafted from those players that were available. So the other owners elected to keep their rosters intact. And that's the tricky thing with the dynasty. You want to give everybody the option to keep their players in perpetuity, right? That's the idea behind a dynasty. But life events happen. Sometimes you got to make a change. And, how do you deal with it when you do? That's just the way we've chosen to do it. And I think there was some really good talent in that draft, luckily. I'm not going to say that those teams, you guys comment on this, but not going to say that you guys have it easy necessarily, but I don't think you're far off. I think that half of the league has a pretty good chance of competing even as soon as this year.
I also think that it was it boosted everybody's charge a little bit. I mean, the league is 15 years old, right? Some of us OGs, it got kind of stagnant there for a little bit. Maybe we were all kind of thinking about going different ways. But with this, the way that we decided to handle it, I think everybody got a spark. And I'm really excited for it for another 15 years. God willing, with Matt and Doc, you're in on it too. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Doc it jumped in on it as well. So we got Matt and Doc jumping in our hometown league. Man, I'm getting pumped.
I don't think I'm in that league. I said I would do it, and I never got into it. No, I never got an invite.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I don't want to steal any valor here.
So who's that guy? That's no. Anyway,
just got a straggler.
I don't know. He said his name was Darren Eisner. I don't know. It's really weird.
No, I don't know about that.
It's Ross. That son of a gun's got another team.
He's got a second farm team.
This is already getting dramatic.
So, all right. Well, let's not belabor that. We're here for STS, and we've got 2 30-man leagues going right now. It's intense. I'm probably one of the biggest abusers of the clock. I've been trying to keep up, but life is crazy for me right now. So I'm just trying to stay afloat. So, I think in my first few rounds, I struggled a little bit just to get on top of it. And then I started getting things built out and ready to go. So I'm feeling pretty good with where my team is ending up now. But
you went, Lynn, I'm going to just recap the first few picks for the listeners and then talk about anybody else.
Just to be clear, in case someone is listening and is not in these leagues, which at this point, probably no one. But folks, here, let me sell you. Let me do the Billy Mays here. So I was gonna try to sell you on this episode. So you're gonna be getting the dynasty updates. Basically, you're gonna get a lot of banter, a lot of fun, a lot of silliness tonight. But you're gonna be able to get in some thoughts on dynasty stocks because, frankly, a lot of leagues aren't drafting yet, right? A lot of leagues are waiting, or especially if you're in a redraft, you don't even know. A player's value shifts dramatically quite often from September when your league closes to spring training or whenever in March when the league actually opens and the MLB games are played. So what you're going to get tonight is going to get some fun dynasty stock watches in the deepest way. Every player you can think of is covered basically. And just to specify, these 2 leagues we have going, one is a category league, one is a points league. And there's 30 people from each. Everyone's a Scout the Statline subscriber or staff member. It's pretty sweet, man. Some guys they've never tried it before. I love them. They're very courageous getting into this. Some guys are hawks. They're saying it's not deep enough, and those guys are probably sociopaths. But that's your wrap up. Billy Mays here.
No, Doc, that was fantastic, and to exactly that, right? 30 teams. We are going with 26 major league roster spots, and then 30 minor league roster spots, so a total of 56. It's a lot of players, and when you talk about 900 minor leaguers, that's going to really scrape the bottom of the barrel once we get into those deep rounds in the minor leagues. We're going to talk about first and foremost the categories league. We'll kind of then spin into the points league, just because Shanks, you aren't in the points league with us. We did split some of our staff members up between the two. So Ross, you were drafting out of the 28th position, if I am correct. Yes, 28th position in the categories league. You went Lindor first round. You spun around, took Zach Wheeler, followed that up with Tanner Bybee, and then Seiyu Suzuki in the 4th round. What did you find within your draft position, maybe the hindrance, and then kind of what were some of the benefits of drafting at the back half of that first turn?
Yeah, I got hosed on draft position in both leagues. I was end of the first round in both leagues. I mean, truth be told, there's not a whole lot there, and I'm known for being a guy that likes those really young dudes. Well, guess what? They're all gone. At least the premier ones, the obvious ones, and even some of the deeper ones. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think James Wood was probably off the board by that time.
James Wood in the categories league went 18th.
See, yeah. So he went 10.
Yeah, so, and then one more boring note, folks. If you're wondering why B Shanks doesn't have his phone on silent, I can't tell you. That sounds like
wait, hang on.
That's a
Was
landline
that a
from
landline?
1997.
Yeah, you can't.
Okay. B Shanks, that's a call coming in from the past. All right. So
where we're going, we don't need roads.
Correct. So yeah, real quick, 130 at bats and then 50 innings. That's our prospect marker. If you fell at that mark or under, you are not draftable in the first 26 rounds. That's what Ross is talking about. Of course, honestly, folks, I personally recommend this way, because then you have a level-ish playing field. There's no teams that are going all in prospects. There's no teams that are going all in 1 year, and then they leave and they have no future, right? It's a good way to set up a new league, and then we reverse the rounds for the first round of prospects, and that'll hopefully be the last oversight note.
I mean, I actually like that format too. I would say it's unusual. I'm used to more drafts where it's like a mix. You can pick your prospects at any point, so you do have the people that are reaching real early, and by pick 28, I might have been reaching for a top prospect rather than a position player. So I ended up going with Francisco Lindor with that first pick, number 28 overall. Value I think is pretty decent, I guess. He's a little bit on the older side. I'm not too concerned with that. I think we're going to at least get a few years out of him before I really need to pivot. Grand strategy, I don't know that I had any. It's just kind of like, well, who's left and who's still talented? That's kind of what it was going with at that point. Now as we're getting into round 25, I think as we talk now, I mean, you're looking at the only guys available at this point are bench bats in the major leagues, and you can't even dip in and pluck up a decent prospect. I mean, so it's very interesting at this level. Very interesting.
Well, and you can't even trust that those bench bats. We're a weekly format, so we're not going to be doing daily. Which, when you're talking about some of those bench bats, Ross, they can actually benefit you in daily formats, because if they're a utility guy and there's an injury for a few days, you can slide them in. In weekly, you just have to hope they play a couple games. Or if you have an injury yourself on your fantasy team, you have no choice but to possibly slide that player in. So they aren't necessarily as valuable as they would be in daily, but they're necessary because there's not going to be anything on the wire. I found it interesting. You asked about James Wood. There was a really interesting trend in this categories league where we saw the last high upside former prospects go, and it kicked off with James Wood at 118. At 119, Junior Caminero went. Immediately after at 120, Doc took Wyatt Langford, and then I picked after Doc. I took Jackson Holiday. We saw those 4 from last year that were really hard to rank kind of show some stability in their rankings now, because it was actually the same exact order, if I'm correct, in the points league. No, Langford did go a little bit earlier, but after that group of players, it was the highest upside major league superstar. And I think you landing Lindor, and he was almost an MVP last year. If you can get 2-3 years out of Lindor of that similar production with your ability to find prospects, you're going to be fine. And I think we forget about that in startup drafts. If you can just get 2 or 3 years out of a guy. Good wrap up there, Ross. We'll touch back on that in a little bit. Shanks, you had the opposite of all of us. All the three of us were all in the back half of this draft, and we were kind of just trying to figure out what we were going to do. You had pick 1-3. So talk us through some of your picks and some of the difficulties that you ran into.
So I would say, like, with what you were going on with Ross about, like, he takes Lindor there, like, that's an easy pivot, right? Like, we're going to see some teams get really, really antsy at the very beginning of the year. Like, you're going to win that first matchup, and they're going to think, well, I'm going to go all in. So let me go find Lindor. Let me go find these older players to see if I can get a title year one. And then Ross can flip that for 7 prospects. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. So Ross's position's pretty interesting. Mine is 2, and I thought long-term on this. So what I did was I had pick number 3, and I went Gunnar Henderson 1. I had shots at Judge. I had shots at Soto, De La Cruz. I felt Henderson was the highest upside with the most intrigue too. Like, if he starts the year on fire, and let's say I lose the first 2 matchups and I want to pivot away from Gunnar Henderson, which would be completely off base. But if I did, if I wanted to load up on just extreme talent of prospects, I certainly could. And then there was a name in this group that I had to go get. And that's Vinny Pasquantino. I had to have him. Like, it didn't, and it's a reach at 228. Like, what would that be? That's pick 58.
Mm-hmm.
The 58th player off the board. That's a pretty big reach, but I had to have him because I'm not drafting again because it's a snake draft, right? So I go 3, and then it wraps around. I go Pasquantino at 2, and then I wanted to pick up a reliever in round 3 in Emmanuel Clase, however you say it. But then I'm dead. Like, I'm dead for 60 more picks before I pick again. So those were my 3 guys that I had to get. Like, and I did it on purpose. It was a must that I go get these 3 guys: Henderson, Pasquantino, and Clase. And it was just a mindset, right? Like, I just had to have them. Once again, they're young. If I start losing right away with the rest of my roster is probably going to happen, I can pivot real quick, and I can trade these guys in for a ton of stuff. Will I do that? I doubt it. And I wouldn't recommend doing that, especially with Gunnar Henderson being 23 and then Pasquantino was 27, 26.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy to have a 23-year-old cornerstone who's already basically a fantasy superstar. I mean, if he didn't peter out near the end last year, like, what the heck are we looking at? Like, 40 home runs. We almost forget how big Gunnar Henderson is. I was talking to the other day. I said, "How big do you think he is?" I think I was talking to Matt on the phone just casually. And he's like, "I don't know, I'm 6 foot." And I'm like, "No, this guy's like 6'3", 225. He's just a jacked up, huge Southern kid, and just, he got a 90th percentile sprint speed. We forget that too. He's a freak. He's just basically as freaky, just about as Ellie. And I couldn't do the alphabet there. I had to just say Ellie. And I would say, as much as, like, it's so tempting to take Ellie there if you want to go young because of the upside, Gunnar, I think, just is safer. You don't want to miss on your first round. Like, if Ellie just becomes this guy where he's, really good Estuary Ruiz, and that he's like tanking ratios, but giving you 25, 40 or something like that. Is still an amazing player. Still needs to go in the first round. But Gunnar Henderson could be the do-it-all sort of guy. And then he's playing shortstop, which is, like, great to have for life too. You don't have to worry about that. And the 30-man, that can get greasy eventually. And first base isn't what it used to be. Vinny, that's an interesting pick. I don't think it was really a crazy reach there. I think that if he comes, it's an OBP is a category. We have average and OBP. And so if you're looking at that, and he should have good amounts of both. Frankly, it's I think at first base, the fact that he hasn't fallen more down the rankings after going like with a pretty bad season last year with his ratios compared to what his upside is. I think it just goes to show the shallow nature of first base these days. And so, and the Royals are ascending. So I like the way you started it, certainly.
So what do you guys think? I got a question for you, Doc, and you, Matt. If you're picking third in this draft and Ohtani's off the board, Bobby Witt Jr.'s off the board, are you taking Gunnar?
Yes. It would be hard. There's Soto, and then there's Ellie. I think those would be my three. I love Judge, love Churio, but I'm taking Gunnar Henderson.
Let's not forget about the fact of the one thing I meant to talk on. Forget all these stats, folks. Bats and stats. How about heart and grit, determination, and by that I mean how much do you like a guy? You know, he said he had to have Vinny. Bro, it's a 30-teamer. You don't go get your guy, he's probably not coming back. Like, you're not going to get him. So, and this is, it can be, sometimes you can trade for a guy. Sometimes you have very stubborn GMs who will never trade a guy. I had a guy who admits Drew Thorpe's right after he got hurt last year. So it's like, okay, like he started slumping really bad and then got hurt. This guy still said, no, he's off the table. I'm like, what do you mean off the table? Okay, I can't get Drew Thorpe now. Never mind, buy low. And so, yeah, go ahead and I still like Drew Thorpe, by the way. And Vinny P, though, yeah, that's a go get your guy. Gunnar Henderson, I like Gunnar Henderson. I think it's fun. So if I'm torn, I would be torn between him and Soto. I like Gunnar more than Soto. And so as it's like, I'm more, for me, he's like my kind of ball player. But, hey, Soto and like his 500 OBP, that plays pretty well too, right?
Yeah.
Well, and Brian, I think the really interesting thing here is Casas went 3 picks later. So you took Pasquantino. Michael King immediately followed with the next pick. Manny Machado followed. Blake Snell hit the turn, and then Casas was taken. I think the industry as a whole loves Casas. I like Casas a lot. I don't know when we really look back on their careers that there will be that much of a difference in their overall line. I think projectable, Casas probably has more upside with that power, but he hasn't shown the 40 home run power that we all think he has. And his average and injuries have really climbed up as well. And then you pair age. I want to say they're only a few years apart in age. So, well, some might think Pasquantino's a reach over maybe even a Casas. You look at the names that follow, and the best hitters, I mean, Matt McClain was taken 3-4, Bo Bichette 3-5.
Yeah, give me Vinny.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it was really that much of a reach when you really break it down. And I kind of go with what Doc said, get your guy. So, Doc, if you have to pick one, Soto or Henderson, you got 10 seconds on the clock. You got 9 seconds on the clock. Who are you taking?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm taking Gunnar for all the reasons I already listed, and then also he's going to steal more bases. So if you want an actual statistical reason, you're going to lose the OBP, but he actually might have a higher average. Probably more power at his peak, to be honest.
Yeah, no, good call. And then I want to just touch on it real quick with you, Brian. You went really heavy with closers. You took 2 dominant closers in the first 5 rounds. And when I looked at your roster, that was the first thing that jumped off the page. There are teams like my own who have absolutely no predominant closers. You now have 2 of the best. Was that logical thinking with who can I trade with the most value in July? Or was it simply I want to have those 2 as my anchors?
So it's both, right?
Okay.
Right. Like I want to steal that cat. That's my cat, right? Nobody's beating me with Helsley and Clase. Like I'm winning saves every week. When it falls apart, man, I'm flipping those. I'm flipping those for prospects. I'm finding what else I can fill my roster out with. Because let's be honest, they help in ERA, they help in Ks, they help in WHIP, but I'm winning saves with that, right? When my OBP dives into the doldrums that it will, because my team's just not built to win a title, I can flip those players. So that's exactly what I was thinking of doing was, when it does fall apart, and it will, I can flip them.
Ross, you kind of took the same approach I did. I want to get your take on that because you and I both don't have lock stock closers per se. How are you strategizing going out and finding those saves, those, that whip strikeout, that ratio boost with some of the guys you took?
So honestly, when it comes to trying to pick up the saves in our categories that I'm looking at, it's a punted category as far as I'm concerned for me. If I wasn't reaching early to get those closers in a 30-team league, like you're not going to get any. But where I think I am really good at is finding relievers that are up and coming, which gives me comfort in feeling like I can find saves down the road and I can find plenty of holds. And as Brian and I, our home league mantra, holds win championships. So I'm going for the holds in the short term. In the long term, I'll try to flip those into saves as I pick up some of those younger names coming up. That's one area that I've been pretty good at. So I was willing to kind of take that risk. On the flip side, I did stack up some older starters as a way to try to boost up my pitching. And that's just a general Ross Jensen, style of playing the game. Usually it's more established older pitchers and young, awesome hitters. In this case, not quite the young studs that I would have liked to get, but I think they'll come over time. May end up flipping some of these guys and, rebuilding too. We'll see how it goes. I think the team that I've got right now is probably good enough to be competitive this year, but we're going to know real early on if it's looking good or not. And my response, if it's not looking good, will be to gut it.
Got it. Yeah.
One little shout out before we move off my team. I took Colt Keith 428. Mm-hmm. Colt Keith is my guy. I think he is the upside for Colt Keith at second base is wild.
So I do have to ask Ross this question. Let's go off here. Round 4. Oh no, this is not the league. It was the other league. Should I save this till later, Matt?
No, just throw it out there.
Okay.
Let's
just because we're talking. I forgot. This is another good selling point for those who may be listening in and not in these leagues. You get to see a little bit of our draft strategies of your fantasy overlords and our never wrong, always correct, foolproof draft strategies. So I'm just gonna name off picks from round 2 to 4. So that's 3 straight picks. You went Yamamoto, Senga, Suzuki. Now I usually don't see race, but here I did, and you went with a certain exotic flavor here. What's going on, man? Is this anti-American, or you just like these guys? What's going on?
I love the Asians, man. What can I say? No, I picked Yamamoto. Who was next in that list?
Suzuki, Senga, and then Suzuki, I believe. Yeah,
Suzuki,
correct.
Yeah. So we had a nice conversation about this, I think, in the last podcast that I recorded with you, where we talked about the dead ball era in MLB. I think you and I have probably different takes on that. I think from your perspective, it's like, well, the pitching is a little inflated because everybody's pitching well. I kind of take the opposite stance on it, and I feel like the pitching is just so dominant that there's no offense, and that's why there's a dead ball era. And I think we've seen that quite a bit, these pitchers coming over from the MPB, and historically it was like they're not coming over with, they're coming over with major league arms, but they're not like translating as well as they were in the MPB. I don't know if we're really seeing that. I mean, it's not a 1-for-1, like the guy's coming over with a 1.5 ERA and he's going to have a 1.5 in the MLB or anything like that. But I mean, Yamamoto, 3 ERA, Imanaga, who was even a little lower tier, coming over and really dominating last year. I think, Senga, he was a pretty legendary pitcher over in the NPB as well. So you've just got some insane talent, I think, that just happened to be coming over. So I really like those guys. Suzuki, for me, is the one guy that I've been a little less on board with, but I think it takes a little bit of time for them to get adjusted in some cases too. And I think he's a good example of this. So even though he's a little bit older than I typically would like to draft in a dynasty, any sort of league like this. I think there's still upside to be had there because I think he's still adjusting. Plus, he's had some injury issues and all that too. So yeah, I'm a fan of them. I felt like they were still available. They were my best options. Yamamoto, I reached for him a little bit, but I just had to get my guy.
So I want to hit on that just a little bit. We've mentioned it a few times in other podcasts. Can you imagine how incredibly hard that would be to come from a foreign country, not knowing the language in a brand new city, and the easiest thing that you're doing is playing baseball? Man, that's something else.
No, well, I think we saw that. I think we see that within Suzuki over his first season, right? We saw that the first 3 weeks of his career, he looked like Mike Trout. He looked like Mike Trout for 3 weeks. Wore 27, hit the ball. Everything about Suzuki's profile was, wow, he's real. And then he fell off a cliff because there were adjustments made. And here we are. I think we are entering his 4th season, if I am correct, maybe his 5th. And to the point of why I think you drafted him, Ross, he just seemed to be the best available outfielder at that spot. And it seemed, if I remember correctly, like kind of a wide gap in that points category, on that points league. So I'm assuming it was a little bit of coincidence. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it wasn't planned out like that. I think Yamamoto was the guy that I wanted to get for sure. And then Senga and Suzuki, I think they've both been kind of just overlooked because they're a little older for dynasty. Both of them are in their 30s now. But the talent I think is still there. It's pretty supreme, and there was a gap between him and the next guy. So at some point, it's just like I just got to go with the best available.
Yeah.
I don't know this off the top of my head. How many games do they play in the KBO and any other league for a full season?
120, 130.
Oh, it is that high. Okay, correct. So my comment would have been off base. I would have said, 182 is going to be brutal on these guys, but it's not going to be that too.
Ross, I texted you about Dooyoung Kim because I took him in your home league, and he's a kid that I actually stumbled across probably 2 or 3 months ago. I want to say he's KBO, put together almost a 40-40 season at 21. Exit velos are jumping up. It's incredible to me because I'm not well scouted in the Asian market. How many guys are really starting to show major league upside at a younger and younger age? I think we're only going to see more and more international signings from Asia and more players that can put together a career kind of like what Suzuki is doing, which is great, consistent, probably a top 20 outfielder, maybe a 5 or 6 year stretch. And that's very hard to find in a dynasty draft. And you were able to go ahead and bring him into your club there. And I wanted to ask you both, I guess, since you've been playing in your home league for so long, your open universe style, how quickly are you willing to add someone from the Asian market? Is it as soon as you stumble across them, or do you like to sit and watch?
You can't do it. You can't do it because our anybody that hasn't played,
because Ross is in your league.
Oh, it's frozen.
Because Ross will get all over you.
It's frozen. Okay.
No, it's frozen.
Explain that a little bit.
I think the question he's getting at, Brian, is like, how early are those guys drafted? Like Sasaki in our league prior to this dispersal draft, I think he was drafted in 2021.
Okay.
Or 2022.
3 rounds.
No, he was a first rounder for sure when he was picked. Yeah, when he was picked. But that there was an article on ESPN that came out about Sasaki early in that season. He struck out 19 batters in a game. He retired something like 35 straight hitters, threw a perfect game in there.
And then had 8 innings of perfect before he was pulled in his next game.
Yeah. I mean, he had a really dominant stretch, and they were really highlighting his repertoire and his stuff. And that was before the WBC, where he was, his stuff graded out off the charts. Like, he was already getting a lot of hype by the time that came around. And so he was a first rounder. Wasn't like the first pick, but again, we weren't expecting him to come out until 2027 or something like that. So he's ahead of schedule, and they still had to wait 4 years. I mean, they ended up putting him back in the pool so that they could participate in this draft. I don't know who ended up adding him, but
I got him.
It was you, Matt? Okay.
Yep.
Nice work. Nice work.
He's one of my 50 under 22-year-olds.
Nice.
Who is this?
Yes.
I missed the name. Who is that?
Roki Sasaki. Yeah.
I was surprised, Ross, to see him thrown back in. Was that just because of like kind of what you said? The manager decided that they wanted a foot in the game here.
So, well, the way we decided to do it, and this was really just out of ease because trying to do it a different way would have been complicated, just with how the logistics in that league work. But they wanted to rebuild their whole roster, and they had Sasaki and they had a couple really good prospects that they wanted to keep, but it wasn't worth sacrificing like their first overall pick to keep Sasaki. Right. So they got back in, and I think that owner is Sarah, and I think she actually looks much better now. Like it was the right decision, even though it was she lost somebody she really liked in the deal. Yeah.
Well, and to your point, when you really put Roki Sasaki on the table with a Gunnar Henderson who was available and Aaron Judge, Otani, right? Like we all love Roki, but when you really put him up against some of the best names in the game, it makes it a little bit easier. Doc, you've been quiet for far too long. It's your time to shine here, buddy. I love your draft. I think you have 3 of the biggest steals in this entire draft. Landing Wyatt Langford 120 was an atrocious misstep, I think, on the league's part, first and foremost, especially in a categories league where you've talked about his sprint speed for as long as I've been alive. Mason Wynn in the 5th round with the 20th pick, with the news breaking this week that he's going to steal more bags, was a great value pick. And then to wrap it, before I pass it to you, you were able to land Yuri Perez in the 3rd round with the 20th pick, who will presumably anchor your staff for the next 15 years. Talk a little bit about your strategy and just how you constructed this team.
Well, Perez is a stud, but yeah, I'm not going to presume 15 years. That's a great career. We'll presume 10, though, and then we'll hope for 15. I think that sounds great. So here's my strategy, man. It's just value. I think we share that. We share that. And I kind of just let the picks tell me where I'm going. So I went Langford to start. I'm like, great. We're doing good young ascending team. Maybe we'll see what happens. With a 30-teamer, one player is not going to change your whole outlook. And the next pick was Matt Olson, because it's out of a 30-teamer. I got him 211, which is the 41st overall. That's in between Adley Rutschman and Crochet. And I was just, I'm seeing Matt Olson. He's still this 31. His skill set will keep him mashing. Like I was actually looking at him or Brent Rooker, because I love Brent Rooker, and of course the idea that he'll get this stadium. I mean, of course, we don't know if he actually stays in A for forever, so you don't want to necessarily buy him off that. And then I looked into it. Frankly, if you look at Rooker and Olsen, they're almost the exact same player. Look at their savants. And then you even look at it, and there's an interview with actually Rooker and Vinny had an interview together with some guys. I forget which podcast. It might have been like whatever. It's a podcast. It wasn't ours, so it's not worth mentioning. And Rooker said that he models his swing after his load up after Matt Olson. I'm like, well, what do I want? Do I want Matt Olson or the guy who wants to be Matt Olson? Let's just get Matt Olson. It's almost like he's overrated. He's definitely overrated. Sorry, underrated at this point. Because he just had a bad year, right? And like, oh, it's over. It's not over. They're going to have Acuna back. Braves know how to build quality teams, right? He's going to sit there. He's going to match. He's going to give me great OBP. Like he'll casually get me maybe a boring 29 home runs, 100 RBIs. Like that's like bankable. And the other big selling point, he doesn't miss games. He's I don't think he's missed a game in like 4 years or something crazy. That's so valuable in a league like this where, you have a player go out for a while and a 30-teamer, like you're in trouble. And at first base, I looked at who was coming up at first base. Yeah, I saw Vinny there, but I'm like, it's not the time for Vinny at this point. Yeah. I'm just like, I don't like my options. I don't necessarily want to be, hoping some kid comes up and gets shifted to first base, because it's not even that easy to prospect for first baseman, because you got to hope some guy's gonna mess up enough on defense and not progress. I'm not gonna go through my whole draft, but Wynn was in the 5th round. That's definitely worth talking about. That was a situation where I'm like, I like to watch the Cardinals. They're somewhat close geographically. It's an old school franchise. I like this kid. I think he's a good ball player. I think B. Shanks respects that kind of player. He's just a ball player. It wasn't really sexy pick. I didn't really feel excited about it, but I just know he's gonna be this team shortstop for the next foreseeable future. He's gonna have a high average. He came in as a rookie, making great contact. Like, this kid could not easily, but this kid could have a 300 season one day. Batting average, that's a category here. OBP, not going to be his specialty, but that's okay. He had a surprising power. I'm like, okay, well, dang, if this guy just stole a few bases, and now he's saying he wants to steal bases as the leadoff guy for the foreseeable future for this franchise. And so it's exciting. Definitely happy. Again, it's a situation where I kind of looked at what's next if I don't pick him. And shortstop gets real greasy after Mason Wynn. Not something, or at least just I didn't like the guys. I didn't like the options. And so it became a really weird team where I actually went with what I like to do, ideally, because I believe for some reason, I never was a pitcher. I'm in this friggin' Toolshed mock draft right now. I'm going all pitchers. For some reason, I seem to identify solid pitchers. I was in on Thomas White. I was in on Travis Sikora. You're welcome, Ross. We got that CBS league. I think we have both of them. These guys are to the rocket ships to the moon. I don't know who my next guys are going to be, but I'm always just kind of. I seem to get a little lucky with the pitchers, so I just kind of banked on that. I'm like, yep, let's go. I mean, even going Yuri Perez is kind of like a kick the bucket. Kick the. What's the saying? I don't know. I'm kicking it down the line. I'll find my pitchers, and I did. I found Reese Olson in round 7, which is a long ways away in 30-man. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting. I need some of my guys to work out. My Bubics, I need my Ryan Weatherses. Nestor Cortez is a crazy underrated player. You go to Nestor Cortez's Savant page, by the way. You probably expect it. Oh, he's one of these lucky guys. He's just a grinder who eats innings. He gets lucky. No, he's actually he actually underperformed. He had a lower expected ERA. And so he's doing some good things out there. Anyway, it's a really weird team. I like it. I like what I have going here. This was a team, Matt and I, by the way, it's worth noting, we picked next to each other in both drafts. That was completely generated randomly. So really crazy odds. And I think I did find
bullshit.
I think I did. You're welcome. I sniped him so many times. He sniped me. It was kind of a painful, funny thing. But later on, I found my pitchers. I got a Verlander year, so they'll buy me a year, hopefully, in a big park in San Francisco. Kyle Wright. No one's talking about Kyle Wright, by the way. And I'll just end it with this. But, I didn't even realize I liked Kyle Wright until, these drafts. I got him in both leagues in, round 17, round 18. Yeah, he's got a new arm. He's all fixed up. But we seem to put in a lot of faith. Depends on who the guy is. If he's a sexier arm, like with Yuri Perez, we're like, of course he's coming back. He's going to be here in the league for 15 years. Go round 3. It's like, okay. And then Kyle Wright, still pretty young. He's had a great season before he got hurt. Going to a team where they're starting to get the most out of guys like Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, and basically anyone at this point, which is crazy. The Kansas City Royals turned things around in a hurry. But, Kyle Wright, great landing spot. So, yeah, I recommend you go out and if you're in a deep league, see what he's costing you. He's probably available.
Kyle Wright is my favorite.
I really like that. I really like that Yuri Perez pick. And one more comment, and then I'll turn it back to you, Matt. Sorry. Ronald Acuna went 16th overall.
Mm-hmm.
Too late. That was too late.
And I'm just thinking about this. The 1-1 coming into last year,
Unanimously.
Obviously, big injury, hasn't played for a while. There's going to be some rust. We've seen this before with Acuna, though. And we're talking about dynasty. You can have this guy for the next, 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, but this is number 2. This is number 2.
Shanks, I'm with you.
Scare you just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it is too late. But number 2, to have torn both ACLs.
Yeah.
When your 1-1 unanimous was power speed, it's like, okay, if he continues to run, what if he tears one of them again? Now we're talking about a 3rd rounder, maybe 2nd rounder. But Ross, I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree too. It was too late. It just that number 2. It's like shit, we got something going on here.
I think 11 is interesting because Corbin Carroll was taken 111. Corbin Carroll has formerly had labrum surgery. We all, I think, in the industry think there's either an injury, another maybe labral tear, or maybe loose ligaments where that shoulder pops in and out. Like, we know there's a problem there. At least we've seen it since the repair. So if you look at the difference between Carroll and Acuna, I think that's the gap. I can understand taking Kyle Tucker at 112. Definitely understand taking Skeens 113. Taking Merrill over Acuna, I think, is interesting. Reach. And then Tatis, I can get that. But there were 2 picks in there where I just couldn't have taken that player over Acuna.
I got something that's going to make Ross. I don't know if I'm actually interested in Ross's opinion on one of these guys. I got 2 more guys on my guys. 2 more guys on my guys that I want to talk about. Because I'm just thinking here, that nobody in the industry really seems to like. I mean, I've talked about Ryan Weathers. It is what it is. Reese Olson, these guys I think are going to be studs. But Miguel Garcia, everyone's kind of writing him off. He's like 24 years old and maybe 25 now. And they're like, oh, yeah, he's just a rabbit. Maybe he's going to be a utility guy. He's just going to get you stolen bases. He's Billy Hamilton. And I'm looking at his profile, and I'm like, that's not who he is. It's not like he actually has a really good hit tool. He came into the league. He showed off a great hit tool. I don't think he has great on-base skills. I don't think he's going to get you a high OBP. But I think his expected BA this year was close to 270, or at least it was something more respectable, close to that. So, no, this is a guy, if things start clicking, if he can – I mean, he showed it in the playoffs. Like, does no one remember that? I mean, it's kind of like – really impressive to do it with more pressure. So, and he stole a ton of bases last year. All he has to do is he does need to clean up those plate skills. He does need to strike out a little less. He needs to just get to that potential, because frankly, in a category league especially, steals are easier to come by, but when you got to fill out a roster, and it was pretty late. I mean, it was in a 30 team. It feels late when you're in the 6th round. How many players is that? 6 times 30. I mean, yeah, you're looking at 180 players. You're getting close to 200 players deep there. Miguel Garcia plays 2nd and 3rd, and 2nd and 3rd are not really as deep as they used to be, right? Especially 2nd. And then that's not the one I was thinking of, though. Nolan Jones, you win this round. You win this round, Ross. So last year, Nolan Jones was going 2nd, 1st, 3rd round, whatever, top 3 rounds in a lot of drafts. And he showed power. He showed speed. He played great defense. I was all in, and Ross was pushing back. He was really not, he wasn't. And I didn't think he was going to do a repeat necessarily. I think direct translation here. But
yeah. I think I said brain dead, sell high, or something like that.
You said a lot of stuff. But you were saying crazy projections. And here's the thing. He didn't get a fair shake because, hey, we're willing to cut people slack for being hurt. No one's cutting Nolan Jones any slack. His back messed up. I had some lower back pain, just like I'm starting to feel better now. Dude, you turn into a feeble old dude real quick. And it affects everyone differently. Look at Evan Carter, Kerry Carpenter. Like, these guys have, Evan Carter lost a whole year of his development now, and it sucks. And so we don't know. That is a risk factor. But in the 11th round here, my goodness, like that's we're in the 300 something. We're getting close to 400 players deep. Take a shot on this kid who obviously has upside, and frankly, he actually does have plate skills, and so we'll see what happens. But he's still plenty young. They're going to give him an opportunity. I think, folks, as long as he's not costing you a lot, go and take a ride on the Nolan Jones Express.
So I want to pop in here,
and I do need to hear Ross's thoughts, because I think in round 11 he goes for it. But go on.
So this is what I want to ask Ross. What did we say about Miguel Garcia when WCW traded for him?
Oh, I mean, I could see your face as he was talking about Miguel Garcia. Like, I was like, all right, he knows what. I mean, we must have talked about it apparently. Well, okay, so here's my thoughts, and I want to start with him, because there was like a massive hype train, and I want to like throw this out there as a cautionary tale, because there was somebody out there, and I don't even remember who it is, so this is totally innocent, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but there was some analyst that was taking a massive victory lap on Miguel Garcia at the beginning of last year, and I think they called it something like this was like the most obvious breakout. And if you missed it, then you just suck. And here's all the reasons why it was so obvious. And this was like, a month into the season. And I'm like, oh my God, the hype is out of proportion with this guy. Like, I could see being a little excited, but it was going over the top. And we had a person in our league that traded a bunch of guys for him to start the season last year. And I was just like, I don't understand. Like, it's like the hype just got picked up a little bit, and this guy was like selling the farm just for this guy. And I don't see it. Sure enough, he face planted after that and struggled through the rest of the season.
Can I say our exact words?
Sure.
That's who you're going to pick as your savior?
Yeah. Okay. So I actually think that both of these picks are okay because now they're no longer the hyped guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was on that same page with Nolan Jones. You know that. And for me, it was just like, okay, he's not going to sustain 400 average BABIPs. It's just not going to happen. So, you can lop off for a start like 50 points off the batting average and take it from there. Well, okay, so that happened and it didn't work out for him last year. But guess what? Those skills that you were seeing and you were getting excited about, the power and the speed, they're still there. So, and he's going to improve. And this is true with both of these guys. They're both young guys that they're going to still improve. Plate discipline is going to get better. He's going to cut down on some of those strikeouts a little bit. So I think these are both really interesting plays at this point. There's a good chance that you could see a healthy rebound. Are they going to be the stars that people thought they were at the beginning of last year? I don't know about that. But are they going to be probably pretty decent players with some potential breakout? I don't know, possibilities? Yeah, I think so. I think both of them are good picks.
Question for all y'all. Josh Young or Maikel Garcia as your third baseman?
Young.
It's a tough one. I mean, I would take Young too, but it's not for me a huge gap like I think it is for Brian.
I think it's like from here to wherever Doc's at, right? Chicago or something like that. Yeah, it's from Montana to Chicago. Absolutely.
So it's interesting. Garcia's profile on Baseball Savant is actually encouraging with the concept that you're talking about, Ross, with growth potential. His EV's above 90 on average. He hasn't had a 110 max EV in 2023. The real problem that his profile at least shows to me for what I'm looking for, his barrel percentage is absolutely horrendous. It's in the 10th percentile at 2.9 barrel per plate appearance. And then his launch angle is also not good. It's at 6.4 degrees. Those two things have to change if he's ever going to be a 15 or 20 homer guy that can give you those 30 to 40 stolen bases. The contact, though, I mean, for squared up, he's 98th percentile. His chase is in the 92nd percentile. His whiff is in also the 92nd percentile. K percentage is in the 81st percentile. But the discipline, at least for the swing and miss, is there. The walk is not necessarily where we want it to be. But I think what I'm trying to describe is there is growth potential. And I think with Josh Young, I just don't know that he can stay healthy. If I knew that I could at least get 130 games out of Josh Young 3 out of the next 4 seasons, to me, it's easy. I don't know that I can get 80 games out of Josh Young in any of those 4 seasons. We haven't seen it yet. So I would.
We saw what wrists and arm injuries did to Kirillov's career. It ended it. I like the Rangers. I like the idea of Young, but it's like the guy who's like his whole thing is power, doesn't really have a lot of, he's not great for OBP either. His whole idea is power and hitting. It's like that's sapped now. The reason I ask this is because when Maikel got hot early last year, I just didn't trust Young. I think Young had just gotten hurt again. I just in a salary cap league, 30-man, I traded 1-for-1 straight up. It was ballsy. I knew it was risky at the time. And then he got like re-aggravated. And Maikel, he had a pretty bad OBP season. He got on base 281. And he still stole almost 40 bases. Well, I mean, to me, I'm like, I see opportunity. Again, he came into the league, 318 batting average. The next year, 272 batting average. This year, expected to be around 272, by the way. So if he just can sniff that, even like 310 OBP, 260-something batting average, it's exciting.
Yeah, and in the 6th round in a 30-teamer, It's a great pick. I'm not saying that. It's a great pick. To kind of bounce off that just a little bit, I love, and I've looked at this quite a few times. I love how you paired Matt Olson with Cody Bellinger. That's probably my favorite. I looked at pairings, like who you can bounce off of and put in different positions for a weekly league. That pairing to me is amazing.
Well, thank you. I did
pairing the whole draft.
I didn't think about it too much. I wanted Jordan Walker there ideally, but I was completely happy getting Belly there. It's like the best landing spot with short porch. At that point, it's just value. Who's the next outfielder go? You know, I'm putting him in my outfield, but you know, we're getting into the Stephen Kwan territory after that. Ian Happ. No, I'll take Belly.
I was trying to find where Young went in this draft.
He went fourth. Round 4. So I got 2 rounds later. I get Makel, who I'd rather have outright. Feeling good about it.
I see it there. Yeah,
I'm not spending a 4th rounder on Young with this injury history, man.
It's solid, Doc. It's very solid.
We'll find out.
The Bellinger pick was great. You and I talked about that before you made the pick, and he's a guy that I think is not as much undervalued as Jones is, but Shanks, I think we got your opinion on Bellinger. I think you're believing in at least there being good value there and potentially a bounce back. And even if not, his season /line last year was still pretty good for what people think of him. Ross, what are your thoughts on Bellinger? Do you think he can return to at least above average form? Are you not necessarily buying that profile?
I mean, he's had one of the most interesting career arcs that you could, I guess, even conceive. So I think any outcome is kind of possible. I mean, I think the MVP days or the days where he was in consideration for that's probably behind him. But I also, going back a couple years, I was like, have you ever seen somebody recover from that kind of performance? I never have. I can't think of a single person that had a bounce back after that. So he managed to come back to being a competent player. So, hey, I'm no expert in this particular field at this point, at least with Bellinger, that's for sure. So I'm going to say that, I think it's a good pick. I think he's, at least got the talent to be above average, but probably not the star anymore.
Quite possibly the worst season I've ever looked at.
What's that?
After his MVP season, right? Like it was
at 2021.
Quite possibly as a starter.
3.
It was awful. And man, for him to recover from that, because I'm sure he was just melted in his brain, right? Like just distraught. And he came back from it. Man, cheers to Bellinger. That guy's
brain is always melted. Did you see his face? This guy's high on the gas, bro. I don't know what to. Honestly, I just took because it was value, and I don't see it's a way higher floor in New York City, but New York Yankee Stadium. But I see that short porch there with a left-handed swing. Dude, I don't need him to ever hit 40-plus home runs, have the MVP season where I got him. If you can just do, like, anything close to – frankly, like, last year was a down year, and he did fine. Like, it was fine. Yeah. 2 years ago, really good. Frankly, people aren't really talking about his health that much. But, yeah, he's getting a little bit banged up lately, and – so I hope he stays healthy, but he's it's kind of underrated. I think his stock's going to keep climbing as we head toward the season. I traded him away in one league, and I regret it.
Let me just throw out the OPS that he produced going through a 5 or 6 year stretch. So 2019, that year that we were talking about, MVP, 1,035 OPS. Pretty awesome. 47 bombs that year. He had a great year. The next season, 2020, COVID hit and it was a reduced season. 789 OPS. Okay, that's fine. A smaller sample. 2021, this is the year we're talking about. 542 OPS, negative WAR. And he's a pretty good defensive player. just a terrible season. He hit 165 and slugged 302. Pretty
Think about
bad.
that. 165, and he was a starter all year long. He cratered, and he brought himself back out of that. Man, yeah. I love Bellinger for that.
2022 was a bit of a struggle too. 654 OPS. I mean, I was expecting. I mean, that was about in line with what I was expecting after his terrible season. And then last year, 2 years ago, 881 OPS, really a really good season. He was 2020 that year, and then last year 751, solid. I mean, I think he's finding his groove, which is probably somewhere in that high 700s to 800s area for OPS. 20 plus home runs is going to be in the cards, and he can steal bags too. So that's a pretty solid player, especially at that level in the draft.
Well, I don't think we talk about this in the industry enough, but you look at 2019, 2018, maybe 2017, we had the juiced ball, right? And for all intents and purposes, that's what we're pursuing. Numbers were inflated, right? The rumors are out there. To think what it does mentally to a player that can go out and have an MVP season that probably changed their launch angle, that bought into the revolution that was the fly ball, to capitalize on those home runs, and then to have that ball taken away from you. And your hole as a prospect for Bellinger was already a long swing with holes in his approach. And now you don't have the same kind of production you had when you put the ball in the air. So he had to rework his entire approach. And Ross, you kind of talked about it. Like, it took a couple of years for him to just get back to a serviceable player and then to get that contract in Chicago. But 751 is a solid player, especially when you're talking about a 30-man. To me, it's unfortunate that the league did this to the players, because a lot of them did change their approach. A lot of them bought into this new style of baseball, only for it to be taken away from them just a few years later.
Well, there's so many factors, right? Like, you could look at COVID and how did that impact people psychologically and physically, right? I mean, one, like, maybe you got sick and maybe it was hard for you to recover. Maybe you're long COVID. Who knows? Or, you just weren't playing baseball, or mentally you weren't there anymore, or maybe you lost a loved one. I mean, I don't know. There's so many factors that can play into this, but there's COVID as a thing. There's the ball, as you were saying, and they were messing around with that. And you know what? This shit pisses me off as a baseball fan and historian too, because I like consistency. I want to know. I want to be able to look at the data and see how these guys are changing their own fortunes without these intervening variables impacting how it turns out. So that's really frustrating for me as a fan too. And I'm talking about the league deciding to change rules and the ball and so on and so forth. Like, let the guys play. That's kind of my take on that. Not necessarily the health aspect, but there's that as well. I mean, you got to take that into consideration as a defining moment in my life, and I think it was a defining moment in many other people's lives as well.
Well, I'm a traditionalist myself, and I get where you're coming from, but there's also part of me that thrives in chaos, and I kind of like the chaos. I don't like a lot of what the commissioner's been doing, but I'm not sure how much of this is directly his doing, but I kind of like the little tradition we have. It's actually its own tradition every year. Fantasy community trying to figure out, okay, is it the cold weather? Is the ball dead now? Or what's going on here? And so every year there's another variable we just didn't take into account.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you can even turn it into a team aspect as well. Like the Brewers had Luis Urias. He was my favorite prospect on the planet, right? He's batting 300 in the minors, gets a little bit of pop here, a couple stolen bases. I chose him over Tatis when they were the Padres. I thought Urias was going to be a better player because that batting average was crazy. All of a sudden they said, well, let's get a little bit more power out of that bat. Let's change his launch angle. He's out of the league.
Castanheira, same thing. Castanheira had in the Brewers player development, I think it's their swing coach now, actually talked about this with their new philosophy. They had him on the Just Baseball podcast, and he talked about how they learned from the Castanheira experiment, and they allow players now to just develop in their own mechanical way because they screwed Keston Hiura up so badly coming from UC Irvine, where he was an absolute hitting machine, minor leagues hitting machine. Well, like you said with Urias, like we got to get some more power out of this bat. And now they lose form. They forget who they are. And for Keston Hiura, he can't find who he was. Like, sure, he's probably the best quad A player on the planet, but he can't stick at the major leagues. And it's because an organization told him, change what made you great, change what made you a first round pick.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's unfortunate. And I think, Ross, kind of what you were saying, like when we look at drafting dynasty leagues like we are now, could you imagine doing a startup in 2019, not seeing speed come back? So you're chasing speed. You think home runs are plentiful. They're all over the board. Everybody's hitting home runs. Here we are 4 years later where everybody can steal. And only a few guys have that elite level power production. It's a completely different game than what you drafted for. I would almost feel jaded towards the league for, not being able to calculate my path and my plan, as you kind of talked about.
100%.
All right, gentlemen. Well, where are we at? We're an hour and 15 minutes. So what do we want to do? Do we want to go check out?
We got to hear your team, Matt. We haven't talked about your team, man.
No, let me take a look.
Let's
take a look.
Trying to get out of this.
Okay, yeah. Dude, I see why he avoided this. This is terrible. This is the worst team in the whole world. No, it's great. I like it, actually. What were you saying, Ross?
I would be interested in knowing what everybody's thoughts on like the steal of the draft, like best value at the pick. I want to go. I want to be respectful of Matt and let him do his team first and talk through that. But that's a question that I've got, a burning question. I think would be fun to answer on the
and blunders. Sorry, but our league. I know we've got to know these guys now. They can handle it. The way that we've been going back and forth over pick, it's your turn, make it cute. No, I don't want to. You have to. It's been a battle, so they can handle a little bit of blunder calls, and hopefully they'll fire. I know they'll fire back at us.
Yeah, good.
I'd certainly love to hear everybody's favorite draft as well.
Okay.
Well, I went through each team a few days ago, right before I went to sleep, and there were 2 or 3 in the categories that I was like, these guys have great balance. I wish I had written their names down. I knew we were going to do this eventually. I had attempted to before we jumped on. Going through 30 teams is not easy. So maybe we can just, as we're talking, go through and just quickly brush up on a few. I'll get mine out of the way.
Exactly who my favorite one is.
You have yours?
In there.
Okay, good. Keep that going. I'll just go through mine quick. Doc, I drafted right behind you. You took Langford. I went young upside, kind of as to what Ross, you were saying. I was like, well, it's a dynasty league. I would rather go youth than Mookie Betts, Rafael Devers, Jose Ramirez, who were taken directly after I took Jackson Holiday, 121. I had the 21st draft slot. Where I found it difficult was that second round, right? I didn't have a guy that I really wanted. We saw Strider go right before me. That was going to probably be my pick. I decided to go kind of with what you were saying, Shanks, and this is my approach to the entire draft, which is who can I trade for the most value in June and July if I'm out? Who is going to be a coveted asset that other teams just don't have? You chose to go relief pitcher. I chose to go with Adley Rutschman in the second round, thinking just a year ago, he was a highly sought after dynasty asset, had kind of a down second half, no way around it, much like Gunnar. And here he is falling to me at pick 40. I figured pairing him with Jackson Holiday was a big risk. You never like to go organizational. At least I don't like to go organizational similarities. But he was the most valuable to me in June or July if he returns to form, because how many catchers actually provide value in categories? Maybe 5 of them, 6 of them. Nolan Arenado fell to me at 10-10. I thought that was good value as long as he gets traded. I reached on Jordan Walker, 4th round, 10th overall pick. I just believe in Jordan Walker. Doc, you and I share a similar belief. You have him in the points league. I have him here in the categories league. Brett Baty, 14th round. I am absolutely sold that he has a chance to put up a Vientos type season. And I mean that. I think he could put up 25 home runs in New York with that lineup if he wins the job. Ronnie Mauricio. Go ahead.
I have felt that they have mishandled Brett Baty. Do you agree with that? Or is that just something that's stuck in my head?
He fell in the same, at least in a developmental path that Vientos did. They got up to the major leagues and they couldn't hit. So when you're a win now team, we're seeing this in Baltimore. When you're trying to win now, you cannot afford to have a Brett Baty in your lineup.
Yeah.
And they also have too many players, right? They have Ronnie Mauricio, who's out with the ACL. Baty had a shot. Vientos won the job. Clearly, we look back now and Vientos was the right pick. But if they do not re-sign Pete Alonso, I think Vientos moves to first. That's the chatter. And that opens up an opportunity for either Ronnie or Brett Baty. Now, if Brett Baty doesn't win that job, he's probably a Sacramento Athletic. But I took the upside swing there in the 14th round. And then my pitching is where I ended my season. I went with Tommy John guys. In both drafts, I did this. I went with Musgrave, Shane Bieber, and ended up taking Luis Gil as my number 1 in the 5th round. So, I mean, it's not going to be a good 2025 season for me. I'm very young, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
How do you feel about Torque?
What was that?
How do you feel about Torkelson?
I hate it. I took him 7th round just because I kind of had to. He was there, and my hope is he's traded by opening day. Like I've said this, I have absolutely no idea what the Milwaukee Brewers are doing. Yes, I'm biased. I root for the Brewers. You can go out and get a prospect that was a can't miss, a number 1 overall rated guy. You have no options at first base currently, and the price tag is discount bin to say the least. Why not give him that change of scenery? Like there are a number of clubs in the big leagues, as we've talked about, with a lack of depth at first base that could absolutely trade for Torkelson, probably not give up a top 5 or 6 prospect. And he could come in and hit 270 with 30 home runs. And everyone was like, oh, the problem was Detroit. Sure, he could also be a guy that's out of the league in 3 years. But I think in the 7th round, pick 21, for me, with the way I constructed my roster being young, if I miss, I've got to have a prospect behind him that's ready to go.
I mean, I think it's a really good pick.
So do
I think, especially in the 7th round, like that one sticks out to me. Think about Jordan Walker last year. Now, you took him in the 4th round, and acknowledge that was a reach for Jordan Walker. But, I mean, people have felt the same about Jordan Walker as people are now feeling about Torkelson. Coming into last season, people were like on the bandwagon. You know, he was just 1 season removed from 30 plus home runs. I think he had 31 2 years ago. Now, I think where he was misevaluated, or I don't even know if it was really an evaluation. I think people just presumed the bat was going to come in stronger. He was going to have a hit tool where he was going to be hitting 280 or 290. And it's like, that's not the type of hitter he is. This guy's straight power. He's a straight power hitter in the classic style, right?
You talking about Jordan Walker?
We're talking about Torkelson. What I'm saying is, like, Jordan Walker actually went 3 rounds earlier, but he had the same.
Yeah.
People treated Walker last year like I feel like people are treating Torkelson this year. Okay. And now Walker's kind of in the post-hype zone. You know, so he's kind of okay to look at again, interesting enough, but like Torkelson's in the no-go zone right now. And I actually think like it's a great pick. Like come 2 years from now, like people are going to forget about like how low everybody is on him right now. And maybe he'll get a second chance like you're talking about, Matt, somewhere. I mean, maybe Milwaukee is the place to go. I don't know, but getting out of Detroit, all of a sudden, we're not talking about 30 home run power. We're talking about 40 home run power, and he's hitting 250, whatever. Nobody cares if you're hitting the bombs. So I think that there's an opportunity for him to rebound. I think it'll, take some time. This isn't a play for this year. I think it's a play for down the road.
Well, and really, when I really look back on it, like I hated doing this, but because of the position we each got put in, like our draft was kind of pre-calculated for us in a very odd way. I went with who were former prospects in the last 6 years that I believed in. Really, to what Doc and I have talked about a lot this season, who are the post-hype sleepers that I'm just going to take a swing on? And Rutschman, former number 1 prospect. Torkelson, former number 1 prospect. Holiday, same thing. Jordan Walker, arguably top 5 prospect before he came up.
Did you think about adding Wander Franco in there?
The penal leak doesn't count, unfortunately. I really tried to push Doc to get those stats to carry over. But I think you were saying that earlier when we introed, right? Ross, you would like to draft the younger guys. I just got put in a position where I took Holiday. It was like, well, I'm going to go young. And if I swing and miss on these guys, I have to nail my prospects, and I have faith that I will. Pitching is hard. Shanks, I really wanted a good reliever. I'm coming into the season with Jojo Romero. Let's see here, Jose Alvarado, and Moldinsky from Detroit or for Pittsburgh. I don't have anybody that I have any faith in outside of Holds. So that goes right into what you're saying, Ross. I punted saves completely.
You have three of my favorite guys in the pitching category. That's Hayden Birdsong. Hayden Birdsong is just a darling of mine. And then it goes to, where did I miss you? Birdsong. And then you go to Liberator. Matthew Liberator is a darling of mine. And then we have spoke about this in the past, Matt. Carmen Mlodzinski.
Yes, I can't even say his name.
I love that guy. I love him. So those three, man, like I couldn't give you bigger reviews on those three. Birdsong.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I need to question Brian here. So here's just one and then two. So one is Hayden Birdsong, who he was like kind of my guy. I think we got him in that league too, Ross. He just wasn't being valued appropriately, and people were even deeper into last year before the call up. They're like, "No, Wisenhunt's still their top arm." I'm like, "No, he's not. Look, it's not happening. Like maybe it will happen, but right now it's Birdsong mania. We're doing it. He's singing his songs. That little birdie's chirping. He came up, and yeah, it wasn't all clean, but like he had like a 12 strikeout game. Like he was looking real solid at certain points. Crazy curveball. Nice. He's got some potential with the fastball. He's fun to watch, and he's got great frame. And frankly, it's always been his command, and his command hasn't always been an issue. But when I say it's always been his command, it's like the question has been that, and that's why he was overlooked earlier on in his development, and then he started finding ways to hone in. It was an aggressive call-up. They lacked rotation depth last year. I don't think they necessarily wanted to bring him up. And by the way, he's going to have a nice home park when he does come up permanently. I don't think he's starting the year in the bigs this year, which is probably for the best. But frankly, if you're able to strike out, double-digit major leaguers, period, it's like, no, it's not that far off. And frankly, like, just keep on working, buddy. Work this summer this offseason, and you'll be ready and you'll be crushing it. I'm very excited for his future. And then the other two, I have absolutely no interest in. So sell me, B. Shanks. Why are these guys good? Why is Modslinski and Matthew Liberator?
So Liberator.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the Major League days, right? Like the movie Major League, when he's calling his pitches, right? I'm gonna call this the Dominator. I'm gonna call this the blah blah blah. Matthew Liberator. Like seriously, that's a Hall of Fame name, man. You gotta love the name.
Sold.
So before that, like huge, high-ranking prospect, and pitchers are so hard to dive into, right? Liberator's just always been on my menu, and he'll get crushed for one inning, right? And that's why his ERA goes out of berserk, because I think he ran like a 5 ERA at one point, but it was just one inning, one bad inning. Everything else was clean. Nobody was scoring runs on him. He just couldn't get. Okay, remember the movie Summer Catch? Ryan Dunn, like an awful baseball movie. I kind of enjoy it, but anyways, that one bad inning, he's just sailing, and then bang, the bad inning happens. That's Liberator. If he can just figure out that one inning, he's going to be terrific. Mlodzinski, I don't know why. I think me and Matt talked about this at one point. We didn't know why, but there was something there. There was just everything screamed at me that, dude, this guy's a really good pitcher. I just don't know why.
He was.
Well, I'm absolutely not sold at all.
All right, Doc. Let me tell you my concept here, because I'm in the same bag that Shanks is, clearly, because I drafted these guys. Cameron Molizinski, first round pick. He pitched South Carolina, pretty dominant in college. He's been used pretty much primarily as a reliever, as a starter. I do think when you're talking about first round talent, again, especially in a draft like this, 21st round, if you can get a guy that showed skills in college. I mean, he had a 2.84 ERA his last year at South Carolina. Very small sample size, only pitched in 4 games. Summer League, even better. We know how much in this podcast I love to talk about the Summer League. Had a 2.15 ERA in 6 total games, 30 innings. He has shown in the past that he has dominant shutdown stuff. He just hasn't been able to put it together at the major league level. And the Pirates have moved off of him as a starter. Yep. Well, then I look at the simple fact that bullpen is in disarray. Bednar was pretty horrible last season. And when we're looking for saves, as Ross kind of talked about, I'm looking for guys that have the skill. And he's got a very odd name. So, like, I'm a name guy. I don't love the fact that this name is impossible to say, but I do see there being value from a guy that has a track record of being successful at the collegiate level. And then from Liberator there, he's 25 years old. We're talking about lefty pitchers in the league, at least from my perspective, usually start to break out at that 26, 27 range. That's my own personal feeling. I think they take a little bit longer to develop. Once they do develop, they explode. Saw it from Cliff Lee. Saw it from Andrew Miller once he made his transition into the bullpen. I think that Libator could be more or less in line to do an Andrew Miller career. Different approaches. Miller had a slider. Libator has a curveball. So, they're not a same profile 1-for-1. But St. Louis also is it's a dumpster fire right now. So there's opportunity for him to maybe take that next step forward. And I think in deeper leagues, both of these players, again, probably 20-man leagues, their upside is much higher than some of the players that are on the board and are maybe safe starting picks.
Well, yeah. So I saw Molizinski come into. So I saw Skeens. I saw Manoah get into a pitcher's duel in Indianapolis last year. It's great. And then Molizinski came in and totally blew it. He cost Skeens in AAA. You know about this? We'll see what happens. Hey, man, it was the point of a draft where it's like, we'll just see what happens kind of thing. And then Torkelson, he was right before my Nolan Jones pick. And I was looking at Torque. I already had Olsen in this league, but definitely the points league, his value was getting to a point where, I mean, if anything kind of clicks, 30 home runs, bank it, right? So I think you're right. And, this gives us an opportunity here. Matt, I just made a pick. You're on the clock live in the Cats League. I picked Colin
Poche.
Sounds like
Colin.
You like that pick? You like that pick? Yeah, man. He's got 20 plus holds in the last 3 seasons. Good ratios. Give it to me in the 25th round. Let's do it, man.
Yeah, he was like the best reliever in the minors going back a few years ago.
No one. I will say this: it seems like guys who don't have contracts, people are almost thinking they're never going to get signed or something. Like, and if Goldie hadn't been traded to the Yankees, he probably would have got taken way later. Like guys who, like Arenado, I think is going for a little bit of discount right now, as if he's not getting traded. So, yeah, I would say if you're playing in really deep leagues, folks, and you're doing a startup, I'm noticing that guys like this guy, I shouldn't have been able to get him this late in a league that values holds.
Well,
Matt, who are you? And after Ross,
say
your thing, but I do want to know what Matt. I want to hear Matt's live pick, but Ross, go on.
Oh yeah, he supposedly throws an invisible, right? So he's like a low velo guy, but somehow managed to strike out lots of guys, and yeah, I like it. It's a good pick. And Matt's on the clock.
I'm scrolling, and I'm doing this more or less to just list out these names for the listener because it's pretty bad. I have two accused wife beaters currently in my queue, and I can't really take either of them because I don't think they're ever going to play in the major leagues ever again. All right,
can I give you my cue? I'll give you my cue, Matt.
Okay, I'm gonna list off my queue. I have to go starting pitching because again, I've decided to go with more Tommy John recovery pitchers. So naturally, my number one option in my queue is Jose Urquidy, who is also recovering from Tommy John. Next is a plethora of garbage: Kenta Maeda, Chris Flexen, and here we get into the first Trevor Bauer. I don't think he ever plays Major League Baseball ever again. I think he's blacklisted, but he's high upside in this range. JD Brudebaker, who I think is actually not talked about. He's in the New York organization, also recovered from Tommy John. I don't know the role that he had with we would have with the Yankees. I would imagine he's probably cut in spring training and gets a chance to stick somewhere else. Rusney Contreras, who's now with Baltimore. Just a couple of years ago, people liked him within the Pirates organization. Mike Clevenger, and then Wade Miley. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's hear B Shanks' cue if we're missing anyone there.
Did you list Clayton Beeter?
No, I did not list Beeter. Is Beeter eligible?
Yeah. Oh no, he's not. He has the green M. Okay.
So no, he said accused wife beaters, not Clayton Beeter.
Yeah, that's
Beeter,
the Bauer.
Clayton Beeter is actually related to somebody that lives right next to us. Clayton Beeter is on my radar big time. I didn't see the big green M, but as I'm looking at your team, Matt, you still have Trent Grisham out there that can be a bench bat.
I can't. I'm forever traumatized by the Juan Soto hit to right field where he just completely botched the ball before being
Drew
traded
Waters
to San Diego.
is out there.
I'm doing it. I'm making the decision. It's Trevor Bauer.
You're going Bauer, okay.
Ooh.
I like those names, Shanks. I do. I think there's a value in having a secondary outfielder, especially on your bench. And I think Waters would probably, if I had needed a bat there, is probably my go-to.
Okay.
Let me take a look at my bench. I think we talked a little. So I have Jordan Beck as my fourth outfielder. I felt good about that. Doc, you landed him in points. What do you think? I mean, he was highly talked about last year, right? He was a guy coming up through Colorado that people liked. I thought he was a little overrated in prospect circles. Didn't perform very well, much like a lot of the young kids. Are you guys buying Beck at this point, where his value has fallen?
Jordan Beck, yeah, man. So you picked him in this league?
Yeah, I got him in this league.
Yeah, so I got him in the other league. That's why I was wondering how'd you got your hands on my team. So it's interesting. So we haven't really gone over the other league, and obviously, we're not going to spend too much time on that. But I got Belly in both leagues. We traded guys repeatedly. Basically, I got Holiday in that league. I got Walker in that league. I got Garcia in both leagues. Michael. You got Victor Scott in one league. And I got him in this league. You got Birdsong. I got Birdsong. This is amazing. You got Beck. I got Beck. Get out of my head, bro. You're living in my head.
It's almost like you guys talk every week.
Yeah, something like that.
At this point, it's every day.
We're starting to do the calls. It's getting romantic. If we weren't married, I'll tell you what. If we weren't heterosexual married men. God, can you imagine?
Thank goodness you have proof on the way.
Yes, twice proof now. You were not too sure about. Okay, so first you're picking Trevor Bauer. Now we're making off-color jokes. Look at this. We're picking Trevor Bauer live on air, folks. Where else are you gonna get this in 2025? But yeah, Jordan Beck. Like people have kind of prospect shine is a hell of a drug. It's so crazy. Like Jordan Beck, man, people were talking about this kid. Another kid coming out of the South, Alabama, I believe, and he had that power speed upside, playing in cores, and they're giving him tons of opportunity. He's actually showing some glimpses here and there, mostly sucking, but then he got hurt for a while. He basically came up, had a little, just a little audition, got hurt, then came back. They didn't send him down; they kept him up, and of course he struggled, so his career's over. And I guess just over, he somehow hodgepodged a little over 130 at bats. But I think in this draft, it's kind of a nice little hack, right? Getting those young guys, maybe people forget are even eligible because he still feels like he's a prospect. He's still young, and all those things are still true. The hit tools was always the question with him. I do think that there's something here. I remember one time I talked about him probably on this podcast or Bats and Stats. And I said, listen, I don't think this is like where he's going. But I said, there's a little Gunnar Henderson here, Justin, that just pure athleticism from Alabama. Both big guys. I think both of them are 6'3", 215, 220 kind of deal coming up. And then playing in cores, man, it's pretty easy for me to see just like if Beck can go 250, 320, fun's on the way. So that's not like we don't need a lot of development with his hit tool and plate skills, but and where did you get him? What round did you take him?
I'm looking and kind of wanted to just play into your hit tool. I like to look at the collegiate numbers clearly, as we've talked about numerous times.
I just want to say real quick, I got him round 13, pick 28. You got him.
I'm scrolling.
Round 12, pick 10. Pick Dude, 10. I'm better than you. I win.
So I think the big concern before we pass it off to Ross and B. Shanks, he did not hit over 300 in college. And at least from the numbers that we normally and traditionally see, 330 to 350 is on par with some of the elite end prospects. Over 350 is that elite level, at least for me. At Tennessee in his final year, so I guess you'd call it his junior season, he had 298. And then referencing his 27 games in the Cape Cod League, he only hit 267 with 2 home runs. So that hit tool definitely needs work. Ross, B. Shanks, what do you guys think of the stock of Beck in the last, say, year?
I mean, I think there's like he fits so well with like the guys that we were talking about earlier, like Nolan Jones and Maikel Garcia. Like one of those guys that got picked up on the hype circuit. I don't know what else to call it. There's like a hype circuit or something. All of a sudden people are all on board with him. Beck, I can see a little bit more because he was really producing to kind of back that up before he got the call. It was maybe a little too much, though, a little too much hype. Like, this guy's going to come out and, like, demolish it. And it's like, come on, that almost never happens. You need a pretty special talent to just, like, pick up and run with it when it comes to the major leagues. So I'm not surprised he, didn't quite live up to those lofty expectations. But I think he's now, like, post-hype again. So, like, there's some opportunity there. And these are the guys that I really feel like I thrive on, like waiting until everybody else is calmed down on them and then swooping back in. So yeah, I think he's an interesting one. He's had that same kind of arc. If I were to compare them all, I might even say that I feel like Beck could be the best hitter out of those guys. I don't know about the best player, but the best hitter.
And you had mentioned Nolan Jones. Who were the other comps that you threw in that bag?
Oh, well, I was just referring back to when we were talking about Nolan Jones and Maikel Garcia specifically.
Okay.
But there's a whole swath of other guys that follow that same path, where they get a lot of hype. They get picked up on the hype circuit is what I would call it. And then, they don't quite live up to expectations, and then people forget about them and they're ready to move on. Maybe even Torque you could throw in there a little bit.
Brett Batty right in that same bag probably, right? Yep. Like we're hoping for kind of a reemergence, but you're getting him in the 12th and 14th round for a reason, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I would preach confidence. Man, if you're sold on Jordan Beck, he's 23 years old, right? Like, be confident in it. Keep him, hold him. I'm not a holder on him. I've never been a huge fan there. I would even lean towards the Nolan Jones, I think, between him and Beck. But I get it. Like, if you're confident in it, go get him, right?
You ever seen this? And it's PCL. But when we just talk about things like never hit over 300 in college, it's certainly not what you want to see, but everyone's development is close. And also so cherry picking, Matt. He was 298, bruh.
Listen, and there's a threshold for a reason.
391 OBP. So he actually takes a walk, which is another fun aspect. But yeah, PCL is not. It's really, really boosted. It boosted De Los Santos. We saw in just 32 games, 39 games there. He had 8 home runs, 6 stolen bases, and he did 319 batting average, 402 OBP. So it's like, okay, it's still a major league, it's still a professional. Like, that's where the hype came from. There was reason to believe there was something here. Not that, but there was something here. And yeah, again, 23 years old, plenty of time. We'll see.
All right, just to
I don't
throw a
disagree
balloon
with
at
it.
you there, Doc.
I'm sorry.
I'm just going to finish it off with, the biggest athlete, most upside with the deepest possible floor in this past draft was Vance Honeycutt. Honeycutt at North Carolina this year had 28 home runs. He hit 318 with a 410 on base percentage. And Beck is 20 points in batting average below the guy that we don't know could even hit a ball if it were lobbed to him in this draft. So that's my concern, right? Like, I like Honeycutt a lot. I like him as an athlete, but we're talking about similar junior seasons. When you look back, Beck has improved the hit tool already. Maybe it's environment included, right? You talked about the PCL, that is an important piece, but I do think it's important as we look at the upside and Shanks, as you talk about the confidence, which I have in Beck, that there is the downside of the fact that we can compare these guys both being ACC, North Carolina, Tennessee, similar regions, similar competition levels. There's concern.
Yeah.
All right,
With
guys. What do you got for us, Shanks?
So, just to piggyback before we get into our favorite teams and stuff like that, to go back to Mlodzinski, and this is going to be a big deal. And I don't know if everybody in the league is going to realize this.
Yep.
You do have a starting cap, right? You only have 7 starts throughout the 2 weeks or 1 week, whatever it's going to be. I haven't looked at the rules.
If you look at like, we have 5 starters, 5
starters,
3 relievers, 2 P spots. So to your point, you can only start technically, if they're not a SPARP, 7 guys, and you'll maybe have some doubles mixed in there.
And since we're talking about strategies that will, win you championships, number 1 strategy is to read the rules of the league you are drafting in before the draft.
Not just that. So this is where I'm going to pick. I know what our caps are and stuff like that, but when you go and draft somebody like Mlodzinski and he does a spot start for 1 inning, dude, that's a start.
Yep.
You can't draft this guy and think that I can start him all week when he's a starting pitcher.
Yep.
So you have to be careful with that kind of stuff. And I hate the way that the Pirates treat that. You can't start Mlodzinski for 1 inning
this year,
and then bring in a bulk reliever. That drives me nuts.
I think this year may be the last year we have to worry about that with Pittsburgh, as Bubba Chandler graduates, as Harrington graduates, probably middle of the season, towards the end of the season. Once that rotation really defines itself potentially as the best in baseball outside of the money grab that is LA. But it's a good point. In leagues where you have caps and that starts are limited, I saw it last year in points leagues, week to week, to your point, it cost people championships because the kid in Detroit, his name eludes me, but he was dominant last year, one of the best players in the league. He had a start in a championship week. It cost the manager a start. They couldn't start one of their best pitchers in that Sunday game, and they lost because you just didn't see it coming. A lot of these spot starts come within hours of the game being played, and it can cost you if you can't move a guy out. All right, guys, what should we do it? We are, where are we at? We're an hour and a half, hour 45. Should we close this out with our favorite drafts from the categories draft?
Yeah, let's do it. You want me to kick it off?
Kick it off.
Okay, so there was 2 drafts that were really sticking out to me, Matt. One of them was yours, so I want to give you props.
Thank you.
Because you're one of the top 2 that at least that sticks out to me. And the other one, let me look back. I got to pull them up real quick. And then I want to give you my favorite player, if you don't mind.
Ross, you can just go to my team. It's obviously my team. What's going on, man?
Well, okay. So, yeah, we talked about yours, Matt. I just really like those high-end picks. Those are some of my guys. And the second one is Where are they?
Let's keep it to one so you don't take mine.
Fergie's fledglings.
Fergie's fledglings.
Gosh, he's going to love this. These guys are all want us to talk about their teams. So many people are going to be disappointed. We can't talk about everyone's teams every week.
Yeah.
I'm going to do anyone's welcome to join. I'm going to take notes tonight, and I'm going to do a much shorter episode on everyone outside of our teams. Whoever wants to join can join, but I do want to give all 30 of our participants, their flowers.
Yes, yeah. We love having y'all in here. We definitely love having y'all on Scout the Stat Line. You're getting in on the ground floor. Some of you, the peak projections model, which is the big selling point. So, yeah,
this is a great team.
I mean, think about this. This is so much fun. We're playing with all these guys that they know our stuff, and unfortunately, they've kind of got access to our secret weapon. That's the thing that's supposed to give me the edge in most of my leagues. Now we're competing with these same people, which is awesome. It's going to just be brutal. It's going to be brutal. Okay, my favorite player. Before we move on to whoever wants to go next.
Hang on, Ross. Hang on. I just want you to track back just for a minute. Why did you like the team? Let me pull up the name again. Fergie's. Because I think it's a great build too.
So we talked about Carroll, and there was some thoughts about that being maybe an overrated pick, I guess, at that level. I mean, I kind of feel like, yeah, there's some concerns with the shoulder, but he had an excellent second half, actually. I mean, he finished very strong. The power came back. He's stealing bases. Even in that first half, the underlying numbers were pretty good, even though the results weren't quite there. So I still am really high on Carroll. My outlook hasn't really changed on him at all. And then he just rounded it out with a bunch of guys that I like quite a bit. Let me throw out a couple examples.
Aren't you sick and tired of Luis Robert being injured every freaking year?
I am, but he's also one of those guys I feel like at this point, going in the third round, we're talking about pick 70, 80. I think that's a pretty good pick, pretty good chance to rebound. I think he picks some of those post-hype guys like an Eloy Jimenez where it's we're not expecting quite as much, but he could be pretty good. Or I like the Gavin Williams snag down there. Just a few of them. Max Meyer was a pretty good pick where he got him in the 12th round. Yeah, I'm just interested in this team. I'd like to see how it develops. Ooh, and he just snagged in this last round. How about this one, Dylan Carlson?
Yeah, Dylan Carlson was a great pick. Just, again, the round 25 from a guy that used to be an untouchable asset within the St. Louis Cardinals organization. Right. Maybe he never becomes anything, but maybe he does.
And in this league, there's so many times where there were guys who I wanted, but it didn't make sense at that value, or I had something else. I had another guy I had to pick, and so it's one or the other. You're not getting him. Some guys I wanted in either league was Spencer Arrighetti of the Astros. I smell a breakout coming. I think a lot of people do. And Justin Steele, my boy. I don't think I got him in either league, and he always goes way later than he should for a friggin' ace. Those are just a couple of guys. That was AZ Bandits and Scuba Squad who actually got those guys. Ivan Herrera, wish I had him. I think he's a great offensive. I think he went a little bit the hype is out, I guess, and catcher's so thin that he went round 6 in our category league. Ivan Herrera is the St. Louis Cardinals offensive catcher. If you look at his numbers last year, he's got a lot of upside.
Sorry, I'm just dealing with drama, Doc. We have.
I see that. Yeah.
We'll just talk about it.
Okay.
I mean, I took Bauer, right? Go ahead.
When I say my favorite player, I forgot. I need to get this out. Emmett Sheehan.
Yep.
I don't know if I can find him on the draft board right now. He went pretty low. And I just remember thinking when he got picked, it's man, this guy should have gone way higher.
So it's interesting, Ross. I want your opinion because he was queued up for me. I wanted to take him as a potential future closer for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Maybe he becomes the 6th man in this ever fluctuating rotation. And then the Tanner Scott news broke. And my thought was, he's worthless. Like maybe he becomes a trade piece. Maybe he becomes Brewstar Gratterall type middle relief, high strikeout, high ratio guy. But I just don't have any clarity with the organization. But I did think the upside was there. What are you forecasting for his future? Do you still think he's a starter?
I do think he's probably a starter. I don't know if it's with the Dodgers. I mean, we'll be frank. Like, looking at this is just kind of a general philosophy I have about players in general is the future is unpredictable. So don't try to bank on where they're going to play. Just bank on whether they're good enough to play and how good they are. Right. So,
their talent, yeah.
So for me, it's like, I think Sheehan is a talent. I think he's good enough to be potentially a frontline starter in the major leagues. I think he'll find a spot somewhere. I don't know if it's with the Dodgers. They're too loaded. They keep bringing in new guys. Tanner Scott maybe closing out games. I don't know.
Dude, that's gonna suck. Don't draft. My advice right now is don't draft a single. If you're in like a saves only league, don't draft a single Dodgers closer or reliever.
Yeah, right.
Agreed.
Like, in general, like if you're playing for this season, yeah, the Dodgers are not going to do you a whole lot in that.
They're also going to win by 10 runs every game. So how many closing opportunities are they really going to have? This is an important piece that I wanted to cross-check before I brought it up. Did you guys see that Kopech has a forearm injury?
Well, that's not good.
No. He is expected.
That's probably why they're bringing them in. Ross, we should have sold him in that one league. It sucks. He's
expected to miss the first month of the season due to the injury. Bob Nightingale reported, I think it was either today or yesterday.
Forearm tightness? What are we talking about?
I'm looking because the forearm was posted in a group chat that I had today, but he is definitely...
He's cooked. That's all I got to say is some sort of tightness. It's over.
I thought I saw that it wasn't that big of a deal. I didn't see tightness, but I could be wrong.
Brian, why don't you go ahead and give us your favorite draft and then your favorite player as I kind of cross-check this.
Who is
I'm
that?
sorry, you're breaking up on me just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to have you on the clock for best
my favorite
team and pick, yeah.
Yeah, my favorite team, it's an easy one for me. I'd probably even change teams with this gentleman and be completely happy with it. And that's JBJ12. So JBJ12 went Tatis, Abrams, Rodriguez, Bradley, Hader, Duran, and Carson. I always struggle with this name. Encarnacion, Strand, Bradish, Buxton in the 9th round. If that guy can stay healthy, and I just said this about Luis Robert, like if Buxton can stay healthy in the 9th round, I love that team.
We've been saying this so for good. Robert.
Yeah, you can take that gamble, brother. I'm not taking that gamble.
Well, but this is the thing. A lot of gambles.
Robert. No, this has been like 10 years for Buxton. It's like a decade long of.
Robert's been hurting the minors every single year too.
Let me take a look here. Luis Robert is 27 years old. Buxton has got to be like 30.
Buxton's
is
30.
he not? It's
got to be 30, 31. I mean, he's got to be.
He's 31. Yeah, and so that is a difference. He's not ancient, but he's proven himself.
It's a 10-year track record.
Also, here's my biggest thing with Buxton. Is he even good when he's healthy? He's got a career 244 batting average of 304 OBP. I don't understand.
They were claiming he was going to be an MVP.
They claim a lot of things.
Okay,
we also claim a lot of things.
He was the #1 prospect, Brian, for like 3 years in the minor leagues. He was hurt for an entire season he was out for an injury way back then, and then he came back, and everybody was excited about him. Like perpetual #1 prospect, perpetual MVP candidate. I was suckered into that for like 5 years myself. After he was done being a prospect, like, okay,
so not only that, he picked up Lux, which I'm in love with Lux. He picked up Adele, which has all kinds of potential. Giolito Vargas for the Dodgers. Like his team is just it could be unbelievably brilliant.
This is the worst draft.
It's either the worst draft or it's the best draft. Doc, I'm right on board there. Adele could be what Adele has been. Buxton could be what Buxton has been. But Bradley, Grayson Rodriguez, and I think this was one of the steals of the draft, Kyle Bradish. Doc, you got him in points. Yes. Bradish in the 8th round, from what we've seen with stuff in the major league level, is an absolute steal.
So first of all, it's JP. It's actually Joe. He goes by many different names. Joe Juliet. He's actually with the Dynasty Guru now. I think he just got hired on. Congratulations. So, yeah, he can take it. But yeah, Ben, honestly, it's so funny how we all value things, right? Like, I'm hearing these names, and Vargas is not with the Dodgers, by the way. He's with the White Sox, which is way better for his opportunity.
Yeah.
For his opportunity. Yeah, I actually do like Vargas as a buyback or buying low kind of moment in round 13. But he picked McCullers. This guy has no fear. Gavin Lux, no fear of bust. And I think a lot of busts are going to happen here. I don't think his team's going to do well, but this guy's smart. He knows his stuff. I like Bradish, and I certainly like I don't even really like CES that much, but I love him in the round whatever.
Stevenson was a really nice pick, and I've talked about this over the last couple of weeks.
No fear.
Everyone thinks that Ben Joyce is the lock stock, next Mason Miller, or he's 70% of Mason Miller. The Angels are paying Stevenson $20 million over the next 2 seasons. They brought him in to be the closer. He tore the UCL immediately upon coming into the organization in spring training. After having an incredible second half with the Rays, arguably the best reliever in 2023 at the end of the season, Stevenson could jump right back into that role if he can prove he's healthy by May or June. And he got a closer in the 17th round, probably 30 saves with good ratios if he can come back from Tommy John. All right, Brian, who is your favorite pick out of all the draft?
Oh man, there's a ton.
Buxton.
But I will go with my team. I will go with my team.
Nice.
Yes.
And that is Nick Lodolo.
Which round?
Nick Lodolo is my favorite pitcher on the planet. Right next to Painter. Actually, I wouldn't even say that there's a gap between Painter and Lodolo.
Okay, we have to end this podcast right now. I'm traveling. B Shanks looks kind of big. I'm going to have to fight him anyway. It's fine. We'll figure it out.
That is a very bold take.
Yeah.
I threaten to fight people on this podcast more and more with each passing week. I threaten to fight Cross, I think. Eric Cross.
Hey, Brian, what round did you take him in? I'm curious because I think it's probably a good pick.
I took Lodolo in the 7th round.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's interesting value. I think you got to stop with the I love B Shanks because he's so original. You're never gonna hear another B Shanks take ever again. Those words will never be said by other people. I'm not going to say them. Well, I think that
you gotta hear him off the podcast because that's where it gets real interesting.
yeah. After a few more wobbly pops, but yeah, Nick Lodolo in between guys like worst pick of the draft. I think worst pick of the draft. When this happened, I said, "What's going on?" Pickoff show, and these guys have their own podcast. These guys are White Sox fans, which doesn't make any sense. They picked DJ Hertz in round 7, right after Lodolo, and before guys like Arias, Luis Arias, Ryan Walker, even Dansby Swanson. Like, bro, DJ Hertz completely has no command. I hate that pick so much. But Lodolo going in this territory, certainly with the upside we thought he had even like a couple of years ago, right? And he could still easily have. No, I think that is a good pick.
Tyler Holden was the reliever I was referring to from Detroit who cost people championships last year in capped start leagues. He had a lot of first inning starter appearances. And that was kind of what you were talking about, Brian, just, the fear of that. I just wanted to throw that name in there.
If you have never read my first article that I wrote for the Dynasty Gurus, it was called Red Hot Lodolo. Red Hot Sauce Lodolo. My first article I ever wrote.
Also your last article. Lodolo. Weird.
All right, Doc, give us your favorite team. I have a feeling it's going to be the Minshew with Matt Kemp, Bartolo Colon It has to be, right?
Yeah. I mean, this guy just kept auto picking prospects out of order, so we just gave him like the old timers. I don't even know how they're still in the system. It's amazing. I frankly, guys, I don't have a favorite team here other than my own because it's amazing. But so that's what I'm trying to just throw you random picks. I like what Owen did a couple times. I know there's some things I didn't like, but I like Burleson. Around 5, pick 30 in a 30 teamer. I like Burleson there, but frankly, I'm just going to tell you how it is. I like my own team. In this league, especially, it's interesting with a 30 team startup. I will tell you though that my points league, having the 28th pick versus having the 20th pick here, I'm picking Matt Olson in second round. As soon as I pick Matt Olson, I'm like, okay, I'm not 5 years out. I'm at max 1 to 2 years out. Hopefully 1 year out. I don't want to be more than 1 year out. Because this guy's got a window, right? I want to compete right now, ideally. So that adds some pressure. Whereas with the other one, where I'm picking Jackson Holiday with my first round pick, the 28th slot. Sorry, that was Cole Reagan's in a points league. So you want that pitcher, right? Those pitchers are valuable, young pitcher. Love that pick. And then I picked Holiday in the second round. Immediately, I'm like, I don't really care if I skew young here and have to wait maybe 2 years to really be competitive. In a 30 teamer, guys, like it's not going to be your first few rounds that do it for you. It's going to be the mid to late rounds. So I've just been trying to throw in a few picks I like while everyone else has been talking, because I'm really good at interrupting as well. So in the Cats League, I don't have a team. It would be irresponsible. But yeah, some of those guys I've mentioned already I really liked. You want to look in these the greasy but not too greasy rounds, rounds like 10 and onward. Things can get kind of interesting. Let's see if I can find one. Let's see. I'll give myself 5 seconds here. So Lance McCullers, that's not what I like. Yo, Joe Juliet, we have to have him on the podcast now because I'm just roasting him way too much. I don't like Mike Soroka. There's so many things I don't like. Look at all these guys who are picking guys who are terrible. Curtis Mead, what kind of goofball picked him? It's a
great pick.
Okay, I'll tell you what. No, you got to give up on him. But I will tell you that the guys on either. First of all, you picked Endy way too high, I think, Endy Rodriguez, but I like his upside. I'll tell you, I do like Jake McCarthy round 9. I think in this league, round 9 is that's actually value. He's a guy who can give you. He showed us some great on-base skills last year. This is from Ross here. So Ross had a pretty interesting draft. I think he'll be very competitive right off the bat. You went really weird. You went with Endy and then Henry Davis later on. I can't believe you let me take Joey Bart. You could have had the trifecta. So weird.
Well, I need to have a catcher, and so I picked two guys that might catch.
But I love the upside. It's like a first overall pick. Yeah, it's not working
Endy
out.
was a great pick, Ross. I loved Endy. And Davis goes right into what we were talking about. Post hype, number 1 overall pick. If you got Joey Bart, it would have been a little ridiculous.
They're gonna give him another chance until there are no more chances. It's not gonna be this year. They're gonna give him more years, or he's gonna get an opportunity. I picked Henry Davis in the points league as my starting catcher, so things are pretty dark there. What round? So you picked him in round 13? Oh, I got him in round 16. 16. Gosh, man, someone here knows value. Someone doesn't.
Crushing me. Well, Which one aggressive. Came first? Maybe I saw you pick it and I was like, ooh. Or maybe
maybe because these drafts are at different paces. Yeah, sorry guys, a little bit disappointing. Basically, I'm the bad guy. Oh,
Doc, you here?
I'm here.
Oh,
I've got him.
I'm here.
We lost you momentarily.
Okay, thank God, because I didn't lose any of you. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I'm kind of the bad guy in this one. I'm just roasting everyone's picks. But it's easy to do that. You just have to know your league. And with a 30-teamer, all it takes is some vet having a renaissance. Like, who knows? Miles Michaelis could just be 2021 or whatever that good year was, 2022. Miles Michaelis again. Okay, now you have an actual really useful starter. And I would say that something, if you're playing in a deep league, folks, always value starting pitching. It's more valuable in real life baseball than it is in shallow fantasy leagues. But think about it, straight math. There's 30 teams. It's only basically 5 starting pitchers per team, right? So you have in a 30 teamer, technically every team has like, if you average it out, every team's only going to get 5 starting pitchers unless you're on the ball.
All right, I'm gonna jump in. While you guys were talking, I scrubbed every single team. I've got 4 that I think are really. I got 5 that I think are really, really solid. I'm gonna start with the Canadian team here.
I was going to mention them.
Canadians.
Yep.
Wilson Contreras, Nolan Shanuel, Xander Bogaerts. Weak spot at third and short with Jonah Bride and Brian Rocchio. But we all have weak spots. Outfield has the superstar youngster and James Wood. They're pairing that with the veteran re-signing in New York of Winker. And then they have Young for Washington as well, who was emergence last year. Utility of Solano. Nice upside in pitching. I mean, Shane Baz, Zach Gallen, Cole Reagans, Logan Webb. I think for a team that targeted pitching, they have an incredible base at hitting with Contreras, Shanuel. Even Bogaerts in the 30 is a good, solid pitcher.
Bowden Francis in round 8. I didn't get him in either draft, and I wanted him. So that's the same. That's the same team. So he had a lot of boring but very effective pitchers who are going to log innings. You need guys who are healthy, because if they're not playing for you that week, you don't win the matchup.
I mean, I don't even know if Francis was boring. Like, he was so dominant down the stretch. Like,
he was low Ks, but yeah, it was like it was kind of like Logan Webb and Zach Gallen, maybe, if that's who he's going to be with his new. Apparently, he's got a new splitter. Everyone's got a new splitter. It's the big new.
I think you guys are going to like this next one. It is Minnesota Moose. Pitching it needs some work. They definitely went hitting heavy. They have Francisco Alvarez, Toglia at first, Turang at second, Westberg at third, Volpe at short, Jackson Churio in the outfield, Tyler O'Neill, Lane Thomas. I mean, this might.
Nope. Hate this team. Not a fan.
Why?
Like Westberg. No, because Toglia's way too risky. O'Neill's way too risky. Lane Thomas way too risky. Turang way too boring. Volpe way too risky. Obviously, Churio is nice to have. Obviously, Francisco Alvarez way too risky. This is like I will take my swings, but his whole team is like,
okay.
You just got it's too much to dream. You're dreaming too much.
Okay.
I really like this draft too.
Lottery.
I really like it. I think I really like the Francisco Alvarez pick. I like Volpe in the second round. Like, that was kind of an interesting one. I think there's a ton of upside there if it clicks, and I tend to think it will with him. I don't think he's going to be a high average hitter, but I think he's going to be a guy that accumulates lots of numbers. So it's an interesting one.
Brian,
what are his ratios going to look like? Maybe Brian could take it from here, but like, what are his average and OBP going to be like? Go on, Brian. Sorry, I'm jumping in again.
I just see so much of potential, right?
Yeah.
Like Churio, man, 1.9. We're gonna go Churio 1.9.
Oh yeah.
Are you guys okay with that?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. Yeah, you guys are fine with that. Okay.
I took him in your home league.
222.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Langford personally. I think there is still a little bit of an element of risk with Churio, but I can't deny the immense upside that you're getting here. I'd probably even actually rather have Skeens, because I just think he's generational. But the hitters we're looking at here, probably take Acuna and Langford. That's it.
Well, I mean, look, he was 20 years old. Chorio was 20 years old, and 2020 season, I mean, there's clear 30-30, maybe 40-40, maybe 30-50 sort of upside here. Like, I mean,
he has the chance to be Ellie with a batting average is how I look at it. Not 70 stolen bases, because Ellie's just a freak, but Jackson Churio showed in the playoffs that he has that clutch gene as well. And I look for that. Jackson Merrill, another guy, probably one of the most clutch seasons I have ever seen, and it was from a rookie. You got some really good pieces, but clutch is important for baseball in the real game, and it translates to numbers.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with him at number 9 here. I think it's an interesting pick.
Okay, next team, NW Farmers. I think this is a great base. Catcher big hole with Fermin in Kansas City. I think it's a backup catcher, so you're already at a disadvantage. But Pete Alonso at first, Jonathan India now in Kansas City at second, Bregman at third, Swanson at short. So veteran presence, good floor. Garrett Mitchell, Helio Ramos, Julio Rodriguez. Let's see here. He has Matthew Boyd, Hunter Green as his kind of anchor. So pitching is shallow, but I thought the hitters were a really strong group.
If things play out correctly, that might be our champion team this year.
If he can figure out the pitching, right?
Yeah. India is a big steal, I think. India is an interesting player. Nobody likes him. Nobody likes India. And he's solid, man.
Yeah, a lot of work to be done on the pitching staff side.
Yes.
I think.
Kind of similar. Let's not sell your your buddy old pal Richie short.
I was just going to say, so Richie's my draft. Richie's my number one draft. I think he wins the league. He's going to have a lot of problems in 3 years, but he took JT Realmuto as his catcher. Christian Walker is his first baseman.
Wait, what's the team name?
Richie's is Timber Rattlers.
Okay, gotcha.
So JT Realmuto, Christian Walker, Marcus Semien at second, Jose Ramirez at third, Trey Turner at short. His outfield is a little weak, but Wilyer Abreu is upside. Randy Arozarena, not a horrible number one outfielder. Ryan O'Hearn is interesting as the third. We're seeing some weakness there in the team. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa as his utility. But where he stands apart from some of these other teams I've mentioned is he doesn't sacrifice his pitching fully for his bats. He goes Garrett Cole, Walker Buehler, Eric Fetty, Sean Manaea, Frankie Montez. His relievers are not yours, Shanks. He has Aroldis Chapman, who he needs to close in Boston, competing with Liam Hendricks. Jose Leclerc in Oakland, probably more of a holds guy, but they did sign him for $10 million, so probably high leverage next to Miller. Spencer Turnbull. Pick I really liked was Casey Myers in the 14th round, so he's got some depth. And Duhar is a bench bat. Sterling Marte is a bench bat. Miguel Rojas is a bench bat. I think this is, as of right now, I think this is our league winner just because of at least the balance enough with pitching.
I think his draft kind of reminds me of my own, which I'm not necessarily super happy with, but like I think I can be competitive out the game with them.
I'm looking you over one more time.
By the way, this is the guy I meant to shout out earlier. This player, Mike Tauchman, is someone who's actually just, I don't know if anyone knows this. He's leading off for the Chicago White Sox right now, and like he doesn't really do anything fun, but he's in a 30-man leading off. As an extra outfielder, even a bench guy. He's going to give you 350 plus OBP. If you look at his career, it's actually normal for him. That's like a huge boost, especially if your team's like very contact heavy, not really taking walks. So I really like that. I think he went in this league. He went in round 18. Yep, to the Memphis Red Sox. And that was annoying because I wanted him and I got him in the points league, which I'd rather have him in the other league because he would give me more OVP and my team needs OVP help. So yeah, I was hoping one more round.
I'm looking at roster resource just to confirm that
that's where I looked. That's where I looked. So he's the White Sox don't have a lot of competition.
Is he White Sox now? He left the Cubs and he went over the.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Anyone on the White Sox is probably playing. We could probably play on the White Sox.
He's leading off. It's like they're going to get some runs. They'll get 60 plus runs.
How many games do they lose this season? They lose 120.
It's bad. It's looking bad. It depends how fast their pitchers can come along, and I don't think it's going to be fast enough. But the second half, I can see them starting to pick up some wins if Thorpe comes into his own. Schultz is up, hopefully, at some point. Would be cool.
I mean, they broke the record for losses.
Or hope for Andrew Vaughn, or is it just kind of
Miguel Vargas redemption tour?
Yeah.
I'm out.
Wilson Montgomery, it's time. We need you right now. Braden Montgomery, Kyle Teal, it's time. We need you right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Edgar Cuero, whatever, we'll figure it out.
I mean, think about it. They broke the record for the worst record, and they had arguably a top 5 dynasty starting pitcher in Garrett Crochet. They lose Crochet. They'll they could lose 130 games. That sounds crazy, but do they win 40 games this year?
Somebody's gonna show up, though. That's how these stories usually go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Somebody will show up and start producing for them.
Crochet was a punchline last year. I made fun of it. I think a lot of people did. It's like, oh, they got this guy who was a reliever, just chucking him in there as their ace. Come on, what's going on here? But Drew Thorpe, he's your ace. He will still be their ace. Well, he'll be up there. They're actually gonna be so sick that he can't be their ace. Hagen Smith and Schultz are so good, but I think he'll be number 3.
We saw a few of those guys last year that came up. They converted them to starters, and they did all right. Like we had Jordan Hicks out there. He was pretty good, at least in the first half, especially. And people sleep on this one, but another Garrett Whitlock.
Yeah.
He didn't get a lot of playing time because he ended up getting hurt, but like when he was in there, he was pretty effective, and he was also a really good reliever. So somebody to keep.
They're moving Whitlock back to the bullpen this season.
Oh, what a bummer!
Yep, that came out.
Ruined my excitement.
Weekend, but it's hard because you're right. Whitlock looked like he was at least a solid number 4, and I thought a decent number 3. But with the way that team decides to use breaking balls as heavily as they do, I think we saw it, wear down. I think that's the wrong approach. If you're going to transition a guy from the bullpen to the starting rotation, you want them probably to be more fastball dominant. And we saw a number of their guys get hurt because of that heavy off-speed usage.
Yeah, what a bummer. I see that notice on him.
Bryce Wilson, though, I watched him in Milwaukee. I think he was a guy when he was with the Pirates and the Braves, if I remember correctly, that always kind of had upside. I think he could be usable. It's hard to tell. He's on the White Sox, so maybe none of these guys are usable. Maybe Sean Burke is really the only guy that we're hitting on outside of Drew Thorpe until, like you said, Doc, Noah Schultz and Smith come up. But this is a bad team. This is a really bad team. Okay, we got off track. Is there anything else, guys, as we now are well over 2 hours that we wanted to touch on before we say goodbye?
I want to apologize to the Points League because Brian's not in it. They basically got no attention. And these guys, I want to just say, no, I mean, we don't have time to do the whole league.
Not today.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Ross is saying, I booked you guys till midnight. I don't know why we're calling it early.
Yeah.
Honestly, we need to go more in depth because I want to apologize to the teams we didn't get to talk about. And at some point, we want to really dial in on these guys, I think. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would love to. I'm excited about this. I will say when you guys first conceived of it, I was like, oh, my God, I've got already so much on my plate. But, this is going to be awesome. And it was very needed. So I'm excited. It's going to be fun. Both of the leagues will be.
Well, and the fact that we have 60 people, yes, some of us, we'll just say 5 per league are representatives of Scout the Statline, writers, content creators. But that means 50 other people came into this, and everyone's been very, very excited. I think there's maybe only one team, and it's due to health, that hasn't necessarily finished out the major league portion of either draft. And that happens. But a hell of a showing, really.
Yeah, and I want to say just shout out to the Points League because actually y'all are my favorite right now. I'm not familiar with points as much, but they're already on the prospect rounds. They've been crushing their pace. They're all really it's interesting. There's slight differences in the cultures between the two leagues already. You can tell. So just exciting. We got guys from all. We have an Australian, we have a Scotsman, we have a Belgian, we have everyone going on in both.
List off the prospects that were taken. I think that would be a really interesting piece before we have another episode to actually talk about the points.
Okay, well there we go. Well, this is the most fun part is that the points are. This is a little preview maybe. Now it's Points League, so again, starting pitchers are a little bit more favored, but you wouldn't know it if you're actually looking at the FYP. Do you want me to list these off?
Yeah, go ahead.
So 1.1 was Sasaki. Ross will love that. Jason Dominguez goes 1.2 in the prospect rounds. It's a little bit surprising, and I'm happy for it because I got Andrew Painter, my team in a points league. I felt like I needed a little bit more boost. Both leagues, I went with Yuri Perez and Kyle Bradish as my top guys. Were up there with my top guys. So to have Andrew Painter come in, be a Skeens type guy is great. Matt here got Roman Anthony at 4, which is a dream. I mean, I would have had no problem taking him
it
myself.
It was a challenge. I talked on the phone. It was a challenge between him and Cruz, and I didn't want Anthony to be there because I thought it would be between Cruz and Dominguez. And personally, I would have taken Cruz over Dominguez. But with Anthony falling, I think he has a higher ceiling than both.
Yes, correct. And then next up, we had Christian Campbell, Captain Helium himself. I don't think it's the wrong pick necessarily, especially if he's a second baseman. And got all the other shorts. This year, he has second base, shortstop, and outfield in this league. Masayo was next by Ross.
Ross took Masayo. And,
I'm almost like, as soon as I saw this next pick, I was a little jealous. And I was kind of like, man, I should have went with that. I went with the best prospect that I have in my listing, and that's Basayo, I think, at 4, and Jenkins is at 6. But I was really jealous when I saw Jenkins go next, because it's like, if I just wanted to go pure on upside, like that might have been the way to go.
Your current, and your current, not that you're drafting for need, and not that we know for sure. I think I'm just gambling. Maybe I think that Basayo does catch enough to hold the eligibility, and that would help you a lot because you have Mitch Garver as your current starting catcher in this league. Yeah. So you definitely would prefer that.
It's funny, Ross, before you move on, Doc, I just wanted to tell him and Brian this in your home league, which we referred to, 2.5 hours ago. I had gotten just so stir crazy with taking the kids from next year's FYPD since it's open universe. And I don't remember who I took, but 2 picks later, Walker Jenkins went. And I felt like a moron outright. Just felt like an absolute idiot.
Who did you take?
I took, let me see. So because it was, the dispersal, it's kind of hard to really build the proper queue. So I'm just pulling out names out of my hat thinking, okay, I like this guy. I like this guy. I didn't even think to look if Walker Jenkins was available. So I want to say that I took Jace, Laveltal, the kid that's supposed to go 2 overall.
That's definitely not his name, but
Leviatal. How do you say this?
I know who you're talking about. Let me just take a look at it so I don't do the same thing you just did. Laviolette.
Okay, thank you. I took him over Walker Jenkins.
That's the most American pronunciation of all time. You can tell him a little bit got the Canadian French roots there.
Better than me.
Yeah. No, I think you probably made a mistake, but at least you know it. Walker Jenkins goes next, and then Kobe Mayo. I had my buddy message me, one of the guys in this league, and he says, "Oh, what's up with that Mayo pick? What are you talking about? Like prospect shine, bro. Like Mayo could still be a stud. It could easily be a good pick."
And he went 8th. Yeah,
it's fine. Cruz goes after him. Maybe we'll see. We'll see who's who. Matt Shaw. It's a classic Shaw slot there. Good spot. Jackson Jobe goes next. Matt was talking to me. He goes, "Oh, maybe Joe, maybe Painter. Who you're going here?" I'm like, "No, I'm going. I don't view them actually that close. I think Jobe is great. I think Painter has a little bit extra something. Could be special. Could be generational." Sebastian Walcott. This guy's like the craziest prospect to rank right now. I'm just nowhere near the James Andersons of RotorWire who are going 1.1 prospect. Sebastian Walcott, and I'm doing that Toolshed mock, and he went 1.5 there to Chris at Baseball Headquarters, Baseball HQ. So I'm just not there yet. I acknowledge the upside, but I also acknowledge the upside of a lot of prospects who just have less of a hit tool question. So we'll see. Well,
when you look at Walcott and Brian and Ross, I want your opinion on just some of those picks before we say goodbye today. I think Walcott
just lastly, the last pick so far has been Bazana.
Bazana was 13. Yes. Yeah. With what you said, Walcott seems to be an absolute steal with some of the publications and the confidence in the industry on where he is with his prospect shine. Ross, Brian, what do you think of some of these early picks and points?
I'll go first. My biggest takeaway, and I'm a huge Detroit fan, right? I'm a big Detroit guy. For some odd reason, and I don't know what it is, Jobe screams as a reliever. He's going to be a closer. I don't know why. He's not going to be a starter he's going to be a reliever. And I think he's going to be their closer.
This is a classic B Shanks take. I don't think it's completely crazy. I made a joke the other day. I think it was or today with Matt. Some come. It's all blurring together. But I don't know, man. He's certainly has the stuff and has the arsenal to be a starter. But I won't say he hasn't had kind of serious injuries in the last few years. He had back injuries. He had these things popping up here, there, and everywhere. He hasn't really given us the full innings you'd want to see just yet. So that was a chance.
Is he 20?
He's 21.
He is 21. Okay.
Yeah, he's 21.
You've got time here. I'm not having that conversation yet. It's just, are you just going with your gut? Are you going with your gut on the reliever thing?
Even when he got drafted, it screamed closer to me, and I don't know why. That's a B Shanks take.
Okay.
I'm not going to go closer. I'm not going to say that. Hey, listen, we're all entitled to our own opinion. That's first and foremost. I think what is interesting over the last year, the difference between Jackson Jobe and Bubba Chandler has marginalized so much that I never would have thought Jobe's shine would have worn off how much it has and how much Chandler's has risen. I think that's yes, same. And I think everything you're saying about Jobe, Chandler's the opposite. To me, he's a lock, stock number 2 to Paul Skeens, probably in most organizations of number 1 SP, possible ace. And it's funny because Jobe was that for me a year ago ish. He's not anymore. There is risk with Jobe, at least in my opinion.
Bubba Chandler might be my favorite prospect pitcher.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And I think it's fair. Ross, what do you think between this little group of pitchers we're talking about?
And feel free to, we can talk a little bit about Walcott too, because I'm interested to get a read on him.
It's an interesting take. I've been probably like one of the industry low guys on Chandler, I guess. I don't really have any critiques. I just, nothing is really standing out to me from a numbers perspective as being that outrageous. He's in my top 100, but he did not make my top 10, and that was the single most pointed out thing is like, where is Bubba Chandler? So, he was in the next couple guys in, just not in that top 10. So Jobe was. So to me, it's Jobe is, I think, probably my 3rd or 4th pitcher in my top 10. So, is what it is.
So this is a little bit off topic, I suppose, and maybe this is going to close out our podcast. I would ask you guys, is Casey Miz going to be a starting pitcher?
Yes.
Or is he going to transition to the bullpen?
I think Casey Myers is a top 30 starting pitcher in 2025.
Top 30? Yeah. Wow.
Did you take him in any of these drafts?
Yes.
Where?
Wait, well, Richie snagged him from me in one.
Let me see here. Mize. I'm going to hold you to
30.
No,
I love it, Matt.
No. His velo is up significantly on his fastball.
I don't believe
after
you.
Tommy John.
No, so I'm cutting everyone off. So here's the deal. I called Louis out on this on X when he was like, Matt Wilkinson's a top 3 pitching prospect, and he's like not taking him in real leagues.
Doc, you're talking about a guy that was the best pitcher in college since Steven
Where
Strasburg.
is the
with
pick?
A plus.
Where's your pick?
That's fair. That's a fair argument. But
yeah,
I'm a value person. I'm going to allow Casey Myers to fall until I can take him. Right. If someone snags him before me, I have no ability to justify that. Right. Yes, I probably should have been more aggressive with him. But my assumption was everyone believes what you guys believe, which is Casey Myers is no longer of value. He's had Tommy John. He's broken the velocity that I look for. He had a plus changeup that has not returned because of feel yet. He plays in a great ballpark with an emerging team in an awful, awful division. He has the opportunity to outperform even his own talent based off who he's going to play this year. I strongly believe he is a top 30 starting pitcher in 2025.
Are you a Tigers fan?
I'm not, but I love Scooball ever since he was probably in AA. So I monitored that group. Matt Manning was always my least favorite. Myers out of college was my number 1 when he pitched in Auburn. Scooball became my number 1 with his strikeout ability in the minors. And then they all fell apart. And here we are 5 or 6 years later, and Skubal is the ace, right? But I don't think Maez is done. I think when you look at his profile, there's a real chance that he's a great number 2 to Skubal.
So who'd you rather have, Thairo Estrada or Casey Mize?
I mean, if I'm trading, I need a second baseman, but I would easily trade Estrada for Maez. And I'm guessing you're saying I took Estrada over Maez, which yes, because I need a second baseman.
And then you took Estoria Ruiz over him too, so you believe more in Ruiz.
That's not a fair comparison, though, Doc. I mean, if you think about my pitchers, like I have Yuri, I have Bieber, I have Strider. Like my pitchers, I have Fried. I went heavy
in the Cats League. I was leaving that open. Yeah, you have the good cat. You have a good argument in the Cats League. I think you could have maybe taken him. I know I'm so happy that I pretty much got all my guys in these drafts, more or less. So I challenge you in the future. Go get your guy. If he's a top 30 pitcher, then you want him more than Estrada.
I was on record last year saying Estrada was going to be the best second baseman in the league.
His average fastball velocity is 95.5 miles per hour. His ground ball rate is elite at 83% percentile. His extension is at 93 percentile. We've seen how much that plays up the fastball. I get what you're saying, Doc, with like back it up with taking your player, but when you're organizing in these leagues, you can't always go after the guy you have based off the team you built. You can't.
I mean, I'll take that a step further. I'm a value guy too, and so I'm usually looking for slot value, not necessarily my own rankings.
Correct.
When I'm taking guys. And I would also say the draft to me is like 5-10% of how this is going to turn out. You know, the draft is important. Don't get me wrong, because it's your starting point. But if I still have the same rosters a year from now that I have right now, I would be very surprised. That means that my team is doing really well. Most likely, I'm moving all these guys and trying to extract as much value as I can out of them.
Well, and kind of to what you're saying, Ross, I think guys like Casey Mize, because Doc, you bring up a good point, right? Like I believe in him. That also should mean immediately following the prospect draft, I need to be targeting him because more than likely I can get him with my belief for a cheaper value than I probably than I have to pay, right? But where he fell in the draft, I'm dictated based off what's available. Like where Estrada was, he was the last second baseman before my son was available. Like there was nobody left. So it was like, do I take a starter or do I reach on a guy that I really, really like and then have a complete wasteland at second base, which I can't fill and automatically probably loses me weeks.
It's fair. I'm just I'm aggressive. I'm going to challenge you to the core.
You should.
I'm so happy I got my guys. My pitching breakouts real quick, folks. If you're here at 3 hours in, well, why not? You know, got Ryan Weathers in both leagues. I don't have to look at it. Ryan Weathers, both leagues. Wozniacki. Can't believe I only got him in one. Unbelievable. Wozniacki's getting back home to Houston with a killer sweeper. They said they're going to give him every opportunity to start. In a 30-man late in the draft, you go for that guy. Chris Bubick, go check his Savant page out if you want to get a little excited. It'll be interesting if he has a spot in KC, but pitching injuries happen. Guys will get their chances. The cream of the crop will rise to the top. These are not your guys you should be targeting as your number one pitcher, obviously. But just some of these guys, I've had a good track record of breakouts, and I said Kyle Wright already, and Birdsong is up there. So yeah, it's interesting. I think Kyle Bradish, everyone's writing off. It's like, bro, this guy's an ace. It's like he's Orioles' best pitcher. He's gonna be back. He'll be fine.
Ross, Brian, anything before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I have one thing to say. I don't know how PC you guys are for your so you can blurb this out if you want to. I fucking love you guys.
Oh, Brian, we love you.
Phenomenal. Yeah, some of the takes, and I know I'm always off base. I'm not a smart human being. You guys are brilliant. I love listening to you guys. You guys are great. Ross, of course, always. I love hanging out with you. But yeah, Matt, Doc, you guys are brilliant. I love it.
Oh, I appreciate it. It was nice. Almost a year later. I don't remember when we did the Bats and Stats where, we talked about Durbin and we talked about Andrew Walters and some of the other names that we brought up at the end of last year, but it was nice to get back together.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Let's do it again. Yeah.
That was very sentimental, and now I feel really dumb about what I was going to finish this out with.
He's going to rip on Wisniewski.
No, I was just going to say Jason Dominguez was the number 2 prospect picked, and I've seen him going high. And I don't know, it seemed a little high for me, but, love you guys too.
Thank you, Ross. Yeah, feelings mutual.
Look at this hair. My hair looks awesome. Why did I hide it with that stupid hat this entire episode? Anyone who's watching on YouTube?
To finish it off, my daughter seen a picture of Doc, and she was like, "Oh my God, he's attractive."
Oh.
No.
Now you can't let me beat you in fantasy, otherwise it's over, man.
Oh,
yeah, don't let her know if it happens.
Brian, what's the age range?
She is an 8th grader, so she
starts early, dude, doesn't it?
So I'm going to do a little bit of props. She's an 8th grader. She got called up to play high school basketball this year. That's where I was earlier. As an 8th grader, she got to play up. So very proud of her. Very, 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 very proud.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's a good little note to hang on the mantle. She's on her way. College should be paid for, so that's even a better prize.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, my wife got halfway through this thing. My wife
gave birth.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to drive her. I called a taxi.
Yeah, so we're good. I think the marriage is set. So her app said go to the hospital now, like the contraction counter. To go to the hospital halfway through this, but she said, "Nah, I don't want to go this early. I'll wait till my water breaks." So she hasn't been yeah. So it's happening tonight, folks. There's gonna be another lady Doc entering the world.
No way.
Yeah, so 2 daughters soon. I'm still gonna be. I told my wife I'm drafting in the hospital room. So
what an exciting night! You got to draft tonight, and you might have a baby. Those things are almost on the same level.
You have 3 pretty good names, like Brian, Ross, or Matt.
Listen, I think he has to name his daughter after his first minor league pick. So, Painter?
Andrea?
Good name.
Can't name her Andrew. So, well, I mean, you can.
Andrea would probably make more sense, but hey.
Andy. No, girls go by Andy these days.
We're going classic here. We're going Josephine. She can call Josie, nice Josie Wales.
All right.
There you go.
I like Josie as a nickname a lot.
Love a good Western.
Yes, sir.
I can't wait till she shows up in a podcast.
Well, and I think you gave Doc some great advice. He's never going to show a picture of any of us to either of his girls. They're not allowed to look at any of the SDS staff ever.
That's amazing.
I'm not. Yeah. Well, I gotta get more guns. keep these gentlemen away from my daughters. They're gonna be crazy.
Hey, if you ever need a side character in a flick, I got a great mustache, man.
You do. I do movies sometimes, people. That's what Brian's referring to. Killing Jim Kelly coming out sometime soon. I'll probably promote that on the X when that actually happens. It's premiering Thursday night in Arizona, but it'll be available online at some point. I'll let y'all know if I go and if it's good, because it could be bad, and then I won't tell anyone.
I'm sure it'll be great, dude.
Probably.
All right, with that, Doc, say goodbye for us.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for showing up, and remember, I'm your Huckleberry.
Ross, Brian, thank you so much, guys. For everybody else, we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.